The warmth of the cottage greeted you long before the fire came into view. As Elias gently opened the weathered oak door, the comforting scent of cedarwood, fresh bread, chamomile tea, and old books quietly wrapped around you like a familiar blanket. The cottage was not large, nor did it try to impress anyone. Everything inside existed for comfort rather than decoration. The polished wooden floor carried the soft marks of countless peaceful mornings. Stone walls held shelves filled with carefully arranged books whose leather bindings had faded gently over many decades. Maps rested inside wooden frames. Some showed familiar coastlines, others seemed far older than any modern chart you had ever seen. A brass clock above the fireplace ticked with slow confidence. Nothing here appeared hurried. Nothing felt out of place. Elias gently removed the iron kettle from the stove. Steam curled upward in delicate ribbons before disappearing into the warm morning air. He selected 2 heavy ceramic cups from a nearby shelf. Neither cup matched the other. One carried tiny painted waves around its rim. The other displayed little white seabirds flying across a pale blue sky. "I've never believed cups should match," Elias said with a quiet smile. "They simply need to feel comfortable." He poured the fragrant tea with steady hands. The gentle aroma of chamomile mixed with fresh mint and a touch of wild honey filled the little room. Outside, the ocean continued breathing beyond the windows. Each wave arrived softly upon the rocks before slipping quietly back into the endless sea. You settled into an old armchair positioned beside the fireplace. Its cushions had softened beautifully with age. A knitted blanket rested neatly across one arm. The warmth of the fire danced gently across the polished floorboards, while the first true sunlight of morning filtered through lace curtains swaying in the sea breeze. For several peaceful moments, neither of you spoke. The silence never felt awkward, only restful. Eventually, your eyes wandered toward a long wooden bookshelf stretching across one wall. Every shelf was filled. Navigation journals, poetry, botanical guides, bird-watching notebooks, collections of sea legends, weather diaries, even recipe books with handwritten notes tucked between their pages. One thick journal immediately caught your attention. Its faded leather cover carried no title, only a tiny brass lighthouse fastened near the spine. Elias noticed where you were looking. "That one isn't finished yet. You still write in it?" He nodded. "Every evening." "What do you write about?" He smiled gently before taking another sip of tea. "Nothing extraordinary. The weather, the tides, the birds, the flowers, the people who stop by." You looked surprised. "People visit often?" "Not many, but enough." He leaned back comfortably. Lonely places have a curious habit. They quietly attract those who need a little peace. The words settled gently into the room. Outside the window, a family of gulls landed upon the cliff below. One carefully balanced on a smooth rock, while another searched patiently among the tide pools. The youngest flapped its wings with determined enthusiasm before finally settling beside the others. Elias smiled as though greeting old neighbors. They arrive every morning, always the same family. He reached toward the windowsill where a small wooden bowl rested. Inside lay a handful of dried oats. Opening the window just a little farther, he scattered them across a nearby stone. Within moments, several tiny sparrows fluttered down from the cottage roof. They chirped softly while enjoying their unexpected breakfast. "I've done this every morning for nearly 20 years, Elias said. "I imagine they'd become rather disappointed if I forgot." You laughed quietly. "I don't think they'd let you." He smiled. "No, I don't suppose they would." After breakfast tea, Elias stood and wandered toward an old cabinet tucked beside the staircase leading into the lighthouse. Carefully opening one of its lower drawers, he removed several folded charts tied together with faded blue ribbon. He carried them to the table. "They're all different." As he gently unrolled the first map, you immediately noticed something unusual. The coastline looked familiar. The cliffs, the sea, the surrounding islands, everything matched the view outside.
Everything except one thing. The lighthouse itself was missing. You looked closer. No tower, no cottage, no path, only empty cliffs overlooking the sea. Elias quietly placed a second map beside the first. Again, no lighthouse. A third, still nothing. A fourth, the same. Every chart showed the coastline exactly as it should appear, yet none acknowledged the lighthouse standing only a few steps away. You looked toward Elias. Why isn't it here? He simply smiled. I've wondered that for many years. Does anyone know? Perhaps. He gently rolled the maps together again. But no one seems especially interested in finding an answer. The mystery somehow felt comforting rather than unsettling. Some things, perhaps, did not need explaining. The lighthouse existed. That was enough. Outside, the mist had almost completely disappeared. Far beyond the cliffs, sunlight sparkled across the calm sea like scattered pieces of polished glass. A small fishing boat drifted peacefully near the horizon. Its white sail moved gently with the morning breeze. Elias noticed it immediately. Old Samuel. He always leaves just after sunrise. You know everyone? Elias smiled. I know their boats. Boats introduce themselves long before people do. The answer made you smile. Soon, the kettle began quietly singing once again. Without asking, Elias prepared another pot of tea. The second cup seemed to taste even warmer than the first. Somewhere above, high inside the lantern room, a soft metallic click echoed through the lighthouse. You looked upward. What was that? Elias listened carefully. The shutters, they're opening. Every morning, as the lighthouse welcomed another peaceful day, the great lantern room opened its glass panels to the fresh sea air. The entire tower seemed to stretch awake. Elias stood and reached for his old navy blue coat hanging beside the door. He looked toward you with another warm smile. Would you care to see the view from the top? He gently opened the narrow wooden door leading into the circular stone tower. Beyond it, an ancient spiral staircase slowly disappeared upward into the quiet light waiting above.
Tonight, there is nowhere you need to be, except here. So, if you're comfortably settled beneath a warm blanket, perhaps close your eyes whenever they begin to feel heavy. Let the worries of the day drift away, like waves slipping quietly back into the sea. There are no mysteries demanding answers tonight, no dangers waiting beyond the horizon, and no hurried footsteps to follow. Only the steady rhythm of the ocean, only the soft whisper of the wind, only the warm glow of a lighthouse that has patiently welcomed travelers for longer than anyone can remember. Our journey begins long before the sun rises, along an old coastal road that very few people seem to notice anymore. The road is narrow, not abandoned, simply forgotten. Wild grasses sway gently on either side, their silver tips glistening beneath tiny drops of morning dew. Smooth stones line the edges of the path, softened by centuries of rain and sea air. Far ahead, beyond rolling green cliffs, you hear the ocean before you see it. A slow, endless rhythm, comforting. Each wave rises, each wave falls. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands attention. The sea has all the time in the world. The farther you walk, the cooler the air becomes. The scent of pine forests slowly gives way to salt carried upon a gentle breeze. Somewhere overhead, a single gull circles quietly through pale morning mist. Its call drifts across the empty coastline before disappearing into the fog. The world feels wonderfully still. Soon the road begins climbing, not steeply, just enough to lift you above the sleeping shoreline. the first glimpse of the sea appears between tall cliffs. It stretches endlessly towards the horizon, calm beneath a blanket of silver mist that hides where water meets sky. There is something peaceful about not seeing the end. The unknown becomes comforting. The unseen becomes gentle. As you continue, the old stone road curves around a hillside covered with tiny white flowers. Their delicate petals sway together whenever the breeze passes, almost like waves moving across a quiet meadow. No houses appear, no villages. Only cliffs, grass, sea, and sky. Then, very slowly, you notice it. At first, it looks like another rocky cliff rising from the coast. But as the morning mist shifts, a tall stone tower quietly reveals itself. The lighthouse. Its weathered gray stones have stood against countless storms. Its round windows catch the first hints of dawn. Its lantern room rests proudly at the very top, surrounded by polished glass that still reflects even the faintest light. Unlike most lighthouses, this one feels surprisingly welcoming. Not lonely, not forgotten, simply patient. A narrow path branches away from the old road and winds gently towards the cliffs. Wild lavender grows beside the trail. Small blue flowers peek between weathered stones. Tiny rabbits disappear into tall grass when you approach. Every step brings the lighthouse closer. Soon you begin hearing another sound beneath the steady rhythm of the sea. A small bell. Soft, unhurried. It rings only every few moments. The breeze carries its gentle tone across the cliffs before allowing silence to return once again. No sign tells you where you have arrived. No wooden board announces the name of this place. Yet somehow it already feels familiar. The narrow trail ends beside a weathered wooden gate. Beyond it stands the lighthouse. Closer now, you notice beautiful climbing ivy wrapping gently around portions of the old stone walls. Window boxes overflow with colorful flowers. White roses, blue hydrangeas, little yellow daisies. Clearly someone cares for this place. A smooth stone path leads towards a small cottage resting beside the tower. Thin ribbons of smoke rise peacefully through its chimney. The comforting scent of fresh bread drifts quietly through the cool sea air. Not far away, several wooden benches overlook the endless ocean. Each faces west, as though inviting visitors to watch countless sunsets. An old brass telescope rests near the cliff edge. Its polished surface catches the growing morning light. Beside it sits a wooden table holding 2 empty teacups. Someone was here recently. Or perhaps someone is always here. The cottage door opens gently. An elderly man steps outside carrying a small watering can. His silver hair moves softly in the sea breeze beneath a knitted navy blue cap. His thick wool sweater has clearly been mended many times.
not because it is worn beyond saving, but because it has always been worth keeping. Without appearing surprised to see you, he smiles warmly. "Good morning." His voice carries the same calm rhythm as the ocean itself. "I was beginning to think you might arrive after sunrise." You smile politely. "I hope I'm not too early." He chuckles softly. Out here, he looks towards the endless sea. Nobody is ever too early. And nobody is ever too late. He walks slowly towards the flower beds surrounding the lighthouse, watering each bloom with patient care. Every movement feels practiced, comfortable, peaceful. Elias continues. "My name is Elias. I look after the light." He says it so naturally that it almost sounds ordinary, as though tending one lighthouse is the simplest occupation in the world. You glance upward towards the great lantern resting above. It must be lonely. Elias smiles without looking up. "I've never found kindness to be lonely." He gently touches a blooming white rose. The sea keeps wonderful company. The waves answer below, slow, steady, timeless. A pair of puffins lands upon the nearby cliffs, watching quietly before disappearing into their rocky nests. Far below, gentle waves curl around smooth black stones, polished by centuries of tides. The morning mist begins lifting little by little. Golden sunlight slowly spreads across the ocean, transforming silver water into shimmering ribbons of gold. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. There is no need. The silence feels complete, peaceful, comfortable. Like two old friends watching another beautiful morning begin. Somewhere inside the cottage, a kettle begins to whistle softly. Elias smiles. "I believe the tea is ready."
The narrow wooden door closed softly behind you as the quiet warmth of the cottage faded into the cool stone air of the lighthouse tower. Before you stretched a spiral staircase that curved gently upward around the inside of the ancient walls. The stone steps had been worn smooth by countless footsteps, not hurried footsteps, patient ones. Every mark seemed to belong to another peaceful morning. Elias rested one hand upon the polished brass railing. "This staircase has a habit of slowing people down." He smiled. "I've never considered that a bad thing." You followed him upward. The climb was gentle. Each step echoed softly against the circular walls before disappearing into the silence above. Small arched windows appeared every few turns. Through them, the coastline slowly revealed itself from higher and higher above. The sea shimmered beneath the growing morning sun. Far below, waves rolled peacefully against dark rocks polished smooth by centuries of tides. Several puffins rested upon narrow cliff ledges. A pair of seals floated lazily near a quiet cove, rising only occasionally to breathe before slipping beneath the calm water once again. The higher you climbed, the farther the world seemed to stretch. Rolling green cliffs, tiny white cottages scattered far along the coast, gentle meadows waving beneath the breeze, small fishing boats drifting patiently across the sparkling sea. Everything looked wonderfully unhurried. Halfway up the staircase, Elias stopped beside a small alcove carved into the stone wall. Inside rested an old wooden bench. Beside it stood a narrow bookshelf containing only a handful of weathered volumes. You looked at him curiously. "A reading corner?" He laughed quietly. Sometimes the climb deserves a little pause. He picked up one of the books. Its faded cover read simply, "Clouds." Inside were delicate watercolor paintings of every kind of cloud imaginable: thin cirrus clouds, towering summer clouds, gentle rain clouds, sea fog, morning mist. Each page carried careful handwritten notes. "I painted these many years ago." "You painted them yourself?" "I wanted to remember the sky." He returned the little book carefully to its place. "The ocean changes every day. The clouds remind me to notice." The climb continued. The staircase narrowed slightly as the tower grew older near its highest levels. Tiny beams of sunlight slipped through narrow windows, filling the air with floating specks of golden dust. The scent of salt mixed gently with warm brass and polished cedar. Eventually, you reached another heavy wooden door. Unlike the one below, this door carried a beautifully carved image of a lantern surrounded by tiny stars. Elias removed a small brass key from his pocket. Its edges had become wonderfully smooth through many years of use. With a quiet click, the lock opened. He gently pushed the door inward. Morning light flooded the room. You stepped inside. The lantern room felt almost weightless. Glass surrounded you in every direction. The entire sea stretched endlessly beyond the circular windows. It was impossible to tell where the sky ended and the ocean began. The great lantern stood proudly in the center of the room. Its polished brass frame gleamed softly beneath the sunlight. Huge crystal lenses curved around the lamp like delicate pieces of frozen water. Every surface reflected tiny rainbows across the wooden floor. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, not extravagant, simply beautiful. Elias rested one hand gently upon the polished brass housing. "This light has welcomed sailors home for longer than anyone remembers." He spoke almost in a whisper, as though it deserves quiet. You walked slowly around the great lens. From every angle it caught the morning sun differently. Blue, gold, amber, silver. Tiny colors danced across the walls. Nearby rested a small wooden workbench, several soft cloths, tiny bottles of polishing oil, a box of replacement screws, delicate brushes, everything arranged with remarkable care. "You clean it every day?" Elias nodded. "Every morning. Even when no ships come? Especially then." He smiled. "The light should always be ready before someone needs it." The words lingered quietly. Outside, a gentle breeze drifted through the open ventilation windows near the roof. Fresh sea air filled the lantern room. The entire tower seemed to breathe with the coastline. A brass telescope stood near one window. Its leather grip had darkened with age. Elias adjusted it slightly before stepping aside. "Take a look." You leaned forward. Far across the calm water, the coastline unfolded in breathtaking detail. Tiny fishing boats floated peacefully near hidden coves. White seabirds glided effortlessly over sparkling waves. On a distant cliff stood the remains of an ancient stone arch where waves passed beneath with every changing tide. Even farther away, small islands rested quietly beneath the blue morning sky. Everything looked peaceful, balanced, endless. As you lowered the telescope, you noticed something resting beside it, an old leather-bound logbook. Its pages had yellowed beautifully with time. A brass clasp kept it safely closed. Elias gently opened it. Every page contained careful handwriting, not dramatic entries, simply observations. Clear skies, calm tide, 3 fishing boats returned before sunset, wild roses blooming beside the southern cliff. A family of dolphins passed at dawn. You turned another page. First autumn rain, fresh bread baked early. A traveler arrived, tired but smiling. Another page. The sea remained quiet tonight.
The lantern burned brightly. I hope it helped someone find home. You smiled. There aren't many words. Elias nodded. There rarely need to be. Outside, the sunlight grew brighter. The sea transformed into shimmering blue glass stretching towards forever. Far below, waves continued their gentle rhythm against the cliffs. The world looked peaceful from every direction. Then, a deep bell echoed somewhere below. One calm note drifted upward through the tower. You looked towards Elias. What time is it? He smiled warmly. Nearly noon. The bakery will have taken today's bread from the oven. He looked once more towards the endless sea. I think it's time you met the village. One last glance passed across the beautiful lantern. Its crystal lenses sparkled quietly in the morning light. Patient, faithful, ready for another evening when darkness would once again ask it to shine. Together, you stepped back towards the ancient spiral staircase, leaving the lantern resting peacefully above the sea, while the quiet coastal village waited somewhere below the cliffs, welcoming another gentle day beside the endless ocean.
The spiral staircase echoed softly beneath your footsteps as you and Elias slowly descended from the lantern room. Above you, the great lens continued catching the brilliant morning sunlight, sending tiny reflections dancing across the curved stone walls. Each step downward felt slower than the last, not because the staircase was difficult, but because the peaceful view from above seemed reluctant to let you go. When you reached the cottage once again, Elias carefully hung his navy blue coat beside the door before reaching for a well-worn woven basket resting near the fireplace. It looked as though it had accompanied him for many years. The sturdy handle had grown smooth from countless journeys. Inside the basket rested several empty cloth bags, 2 glass jars, and a folded shopping list written neatly in blue ink. "Every lighthouse keeper needs groceries," Elias said with a gentle smile. "I suppose that's true." He chuckled. "Even old towers appreciate fresh bread." You stepped outside together. The morning had fully awakened. Sunlight sparkled across the sea, while a cool breeze carried the refreshing scent of salt, wild herbs, and blooming lavender through the air. The narrow stone path curved gently away from the lighthouse before beginning its slow descent toward the village below. Along the way, patches of bright yellow wildflowers covered the hillside like tiny drops of sunshine. Butterflies drifted lazily between blossoms. Several rabbits disappeared quietly beneath thick grasses as your shadows passed them. Far below, the little harbor slowly came into view. Fishing boats rested peacefully upon calm blue water. Their painted hulls reflected gently in the sea, moving only slightly with the lazy rhythm of the tide. White sails fluttered softly beside wooden docks. Beyond them, rows of cozy stone cottages stretched along the shoreline. Each roof carried flower boxes overflowing with colorful blooms. No building seemed taller than 2 stories. Nothing interrupted the peaceful balance between the village and the sea. "It almost feels hidden," you whispered. Elias smiled. "That's because nobody ever tried to make it famous." The words felt strangely comforting. Soon the path widened into an old cobblestone lane lined with flowering hedges. A weathered wooden sign welcomed visitors. Its faded lettering simply read, "Moonhaven." Nothing more. No population, no directions, just the village's quiet name. An elderly woman sweeping the front steps of her cottage looked up as you approached. She smiled warmly. "Good morning, Elias." "Good morning, Clara." "You've brought someone new." "I have. I thought our village deserved another friend." Clara laughed softly. "I think the village agrees." She handed Elias a tiny bundle of fresh rosemary tied with blue ribbon. "For tonight's soup." "Thank you. You always know what the kitchen is missing." The simple exchange carried the comfort of years spent greeting one another. Neither seemed hurried, neither needed many words.
As you continued walking, every cottage seemed to have its own little garden. White roses climbed wooden fences, lavender bordered stone paths. Tiny apple trees bent gently beneath young fruit. Window shutters had been painted in cheerful shades of sea blue, soft green, and warm cream. Cats slept peacefully on sunny windowsills. Children quietly skipped along the lane, carrying little baskets filled with seashells collected from the beach. One little boy proudly held up a perfectly round shell. "Elias, look what I found!" Elias examined it carefully. A beautiful moon shell. The boy grinned. "I'll put it on the windowsill so the sunrise can find it. A wonderful place." The child happily hurried away. You smiled. "Everyone seems to know you." Elias laughed. "I've been buying bread here for 32 years. After that, it becomes difficult to remain a stranger." Soon an irresistible aroma drifted toward you. Warm bread, butter, cinnamon, fresh pastries. The scent grew richer with every step. Ahead stood a beautiful little bakery built from pale stone and weathered oak. Its large front windows displayed rows of golden loaves cooling upon wooden racks. Fresh berry pies rested beside braided sweet bread dusted lightly with sugar. Tiny butter rolls glowed beneath the morning sunlight. A small brass bell above the door chimed softly as Elias stepped inside. The warmth was immediate. The bakery felt wonderfully welcoming. Wooden shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, each filled with fresh bread baked only moments earlier. Behind the counter stood a cheerful baker wearing a flour-covered apron. His sleeves had been rolled neatly to his elbows. A cloud of warm steam drifted gently from the great stone oven behind him. "Elias, you've arrived at exactly the time. I try not to disappoint the bread." The baker laughed heartily. "I should hope not." Without asking, he placed a warm country loaf on the counter, then another, followed by 2 cinnamon buns, and your usual honey biscuits. Elias smiled. "You remember everything. The sea remembers tides. I remember breakfast." The baker looked toward you. "A first visit?" You nodded. "I'm beginning to think I'll never want to leave." The baker smiled knowingly. "Most people say that." He carefully wrapped the bread inside brown paper before placing everything neatly into Elias's basket. "No charge for the cinnamon buns. They came out especially well this morning." Elias gently shook his head. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Everyone laughed quietly. Outside, the harbor bells rang softly as another small fishing boat returned from the calm morning sea. Seabirds circled overhead. Children waved from the docks. The breeze carried the comforting scent of warm bread through every peaceful street. As you stepped back into the sunshine beside Elias, the quiet village of Moonhaven continued its gentle rhythm. One loaf cooling in a bakery window, one fishing boat returning home, and one forgotten lighthouse standing faithfully above it all, watching over the sea exactly as it had for generations.
The warmth of the bakery lingered pleasantly as you and Elias stepped back onto the cobblestone street. The basket, resting comfortably over his arm now, carried fresh country bread, cinnamon buns, honey biscuits, and several fragrant bundles of herbs tucked carefully between the loaves. A gentle breeze drifted through the village, carrying with it the scent of warm bread before slowly replacing it with the crisp fragrance of the sea. Ahead, the harbor shimmered beneath the bright midday sun. The tide had risen slightly since morning. Fishing boats floated peacefully beside weathered wooden docks, rising and falling with such gentle rhythm that they almost seemed to breathe alongside the ocean itself. The village remained wonderfully quiet. No loud engines echoed across the water. No hurried footsteps rushed along the streets.
only the distant cry of seabirds, the soft tapping of ropes against wooden masts, and the endless conversation between waves and shoreline. As you approached the harbor, several fishermen sat together beneath a wide canvas shelter, repairing their fishing nets. Their hands moved with remarkable patience, thread passing through rope, knot after knot, every movement practiced through many peaceful years. One of them looked up and smiled warmly. "Elias, you've brought another traveler." "I have." The fisherman nodded kindly toward you. "Then welcome. I hope the sea has been gentle to you." "It has," you answered. He smiled. "It usually is, if you remember to move at its pace." The others quietly agreed without saying a word. One elderly fisherman slowly folded the corner of a finished net before carefully setting it aside. "It will last another season." He spoke more to himself than anyone else. There is something satisfying about repairing things instead of replacing them. Elias nodded. That seems to be the village's favorite tradition. Nearby, a young woman carefully painted the faded blue railing surrounding one of the docks. She paused long enough to wave cheerfully before returning to her work. Not because anyone had asked, simply because she believed beautiful places deserved a little care. Flower boxes overflowed with lavender, daisies, and white sea roses. Even the old harbor posts had tiny climbing vines wrapped around them. Nothing felt neglected. Every corner carried small signs of quiet attention. A little farther along the dock, several children sat with simple fishing lines dangling into the calm water. Their buckets remained almost empty, yet none appeared disappointed. One little girl pointed excitedly toward the water. A school of tiny silver fish flashed beneath the surface before disappearing into deeper blue. "We saw them," she laughed. Her grandfather smiled beside her. Sometimes seeing is enough. The words floated gently across the harbor. No one argued. No one suggested catching more. The moment itself felt complete. Elias stopped beside a small wooden bench overlooking the sea. An old brass plaque rested quietly beneath it. The letters had softened with time. It simply read, "For every safe return." Nothing more. You sat together watching the harbor. Fishing boats drifted peacefully in the sunlight. Their reflections shimmered gently across the clear water. Several seals rested upon distant rocks beyond the breakwater, lazily warming themselves beneath the afternoon sun. One lifted its head briefly before slipping back into comfortable stillness. A pair of white swans glided gracefully near the entrance to the harbor. Their movements were so smooth they barely disturbed the water. "They visit every afternoon," Elias said. "They've been coming longer than I have." "Do they always arrive together?" "They always have." A comfortable silence settled between you. Nearby, an old sailor quietly polished a beautifully crafted wooden model ship. Its tiny sails had been stitched by hand. Every rope, every mast, every small window had been carved with extraordinary care. You admired the remarkable craftsmanship. "It's beautiful." The old sailor smiled. "It belonged to my grandfather. He built the real ship, and I built the memory." He gently placed the little vessel back inside its glass case. "Wood remembers patient hands." The sentence lingered pleasantly in your thoughts. Farther down the harbor stood a small building painted soft white with pale blue shutters. A wooden sign above the door read, "Harbor Master." Outside rested an enormous brass bell suspended under a sturdy oak frame. Its polished surface reflected the afternoon sunlight beautifully. Every hour someone gently rang the bell, not loudly, not urgently, only enough for its deep, peaceful tone to roll across the water before fading into the sea breeze. As on cue, the bell rang once. Its rich sound drifted over the harbor. Fishing boats swayed gently. Seabirds briefly lifted into the sky before settling once more. Even the waves seemed to pause for just a heartbeat. The village returned naturally to its quiet rhythm. Elias smiled. "I've always liked that bell. It reminds everyone that another peaceful hour has passed." You noticed a narrow stone path continuing beyond the harbor. It followed the coastline toward a series of smooth cliffs where waves gently curled around hidden coves. Colorful flower bulbs covered the hillside above. A weathered wooden fence protected the edge of the path. Several wooden benches overlooked the endless sea. The view seemed to invite slow walks rather than destinations. Elias adjusted the basket comfortably upon his arm. "I usually take this path home, not because it's shorter." He smiled gently. "Because it's prettier." You laughed softly. "I think I'm beginning to understand how this village makes decisions. We're in no great hurry." The afternoon sun reflected across the calm water like scattered pieces of gold. A cool breeze carried the distant scent of salt and blooming sea lavender. Behind you, Moonhaven Harbor continued its peaceful work without noise or rush. Ahead, the quiet coastal path curved gently toward the cliffs, where the endless ocean stretched beyond the horizon, and another small corner of this forgotten seaside world waited patiently to be discovered.
The narrow stone path curved gently away from the harbor, following the edge of the cliffs as faithfully as it had for generations. Behind you, the cheerful sounds of Moonhaven slowly faded into the distance. The soft tapping of ropes against wooden docks became quieter. The laughter of children drifted away with the breeze. Soon there was only the sea. Its endless rhythm seemed even calmer here. Each wave rolled toward the cliffs with quiet confidence before dissolving into white foam against smooth black stones below. The afternoon sun rested high above the water, turning every gentle ripple into scattered pieces of silver and gold. Elias slowed his pace naturally. "I've never liked rushing through this part of the coast. I can understand why," he smiled. "The sea rewards patient walkers." Wild sea lavender stretched across both sides of the trail, filling the air with a delicate fragrance that mixed beautifully with the fresh scent of salt carried by the breeze. Tiny white butterflies drifted lazily between the flowers. Several bumblebees moved quietly from blossom to blossom, completely absorbed in their gentle work. No one disturbed them. They belonged here as much as the cliffs themselves. The stone path climbed slightly before reaching a wide overlook protected by a weathered wooden fence. From there, the coastline stretched endlessly in both directions. Hidden coves rested beneath the cliffs like quiet secrets. Crystal clear water revealed smooth stones beneath the surface. Far offshore, several dolphins surfaced briefly before disappearing once more beneath the calm blue sea. You stopped without thinking. The view invited stillness. "It never looks exactly the same twice," Elias said softly. "The tide changes, the light changes, the clouds change, but somehow it always feels like home." A comfortable silence settled between you. Nearby, several seabirds glided effortlessly upon invisible currents rising from the cliffs. They barely moved their wings. Instead, they allowed the wind to carry them wherever it wished. One circled gracefully above the lighthouse, standing far behind you. Its white stone tower shone brightly beneath the afternoon sun. From this distance, it appeared almost delicate against the endless sky. "It's beautiful from here," you whispered. Elias turned to look. "I still admire it every day. I've seen that lighthouse thousands of times, but I never grow tired of saying good morning." The trail continued along the coastline before gently descending toward a narrow pebble beach hidden between two rocky cliffs. A tiny wooden staircase led carefully down to the shore. "Would you like to see my favorite beach?" You nodded. The steps creaked softly beneath your feet as you descended. Unlike the village harbor, this little cove remained wonderfully untouched. No boats, no buildings, only sea, stones, sky, and the quiet music of the waves. Thousands of smooth pebbles covered the beach, gray, blue, white, soft shades of green. Each had been polished perfectly by countless tides. The water remained astonishingly clear. Tiny fish darted between underwater rocks, while gentle waves rolled onto the shore with barely a whisper. Elias bent slowly and picked up a perfectly round white stone. He turned it thoughtfully in his hand before placing it back exactly where he had found it. I've always believed beautiful things don't have to belong to us. They can simply be admired. You smiled. I think the stone appreciates that. He laughed quietly. I hope so. A little farther along the beach, a narrow stream trickled from the cliffs into the sea. Fresh water met salt water without hurry. Small ferns covered the damp rocks nearby. Moss glowed bright green beneath the afternoon light. Several dragonflies hovered above the little stream, their transparent wings sparkling whenever sunlight caught them. You sat together on a smooth driftwood log resting near the water's edge. The wood had been shaped gently for years of wind and waves until it almost resembled a carefully carved bench. Elias reached into the woven basket and removed one of the cinnamon buns from the bakery. He broke it neatly into 2 pieces. I've learned something important. What is that? Scenic places deserve good pastries. You both laughed softly. The warm cinnamon filling carried a delicate sweetness that paired perfectly with the cool ocean air. A nearby gull watched with polite curiosity, but made no attempt to steal a crumb. Even the birds here seemed unusually patient. After finishing the little afternoon treat, Elias unfolded a small blue blanket from the basket. Together you spread it across the smooth pebbles. For a while, neither of you spoke. The sea seemed happy to carry the conversation. Wave after wave arrived gently. Cloud shadows drifted across the water. A distant fishing boat moved quietly toward the harbor. Time became wonderfully difficult to measure. Eventually, you noticed several tiny stacks of carefully balanced stones resting along the beach. Some held 3 stones, others 5. One remarkable tower balanced nearly a dozen smooth pebbles upon one another. Who built those? Elias smiled. Different visitors. They never leave names. They simply leave a little balance behind. You walked toward one unfinished stack where several perfectly smooth stones rested nearby. Carefully choosing a flat gray pebble, you placed it gently on top. It wobbled once, then settled. The little tower stood quietly against the backdrop of the endless sea. Not perfect, simply peaceful. Elias nodded with quiet approval. I think someone will smile when they find that tomorrow. The afternoon sun had begun its slow journey westward. Golden light stretched across the cliffs, warming every patch of sea lavender and every weathered stone along the shore. The breeze became cooler, gentler. Elias looked toward the lighthouse standing proudly above the cliffs. It won't be long before I need to prepare the lantern. You followed his gaze. Though still bright beneath the afternoon sky, the great tower already seemed patiently waiting for evening. Together, you climbed the little wooden staircase once more, leaving behind the quiet cove, the balanced stones, and the gentle whisper of the waves, as you continued along the peaceful coastal path toward the lighthouse, where another calm sunset slowly approached above the endless sea.
The climb back toward the lighthouse felt even gentler than before. The afternoon breeze had softened, carrying with it the cool freshness that always arrived before sunset. Every few moments, the sea breeze wandered through the tall grasses, creating quiet waves across the hillside that echoed the movement of the ocean far below. The lighthouse stood patiently at the top of the cliff. Its pale stone walls glowed warmly beneath the lowering sun. Golden light rested upon every weathered stone as though the tower itself had quietly collected centuries of sunsets. Elias smiled when he noticed you looking toward it. I still think this is the most beautiful hour of the day. You prefer sunset? He nodded slowly. Morning welcomes the world. Evening thanks it. The words lingered comfortably between you as you continued along the narrow path. The garden surrounding the lighthouse had changed since morning. The white roses had opened a little wider. Tiny lavender blossoms swayed gently in the cool breeze. Several bees made their final visits before returning to hidden hives somewhere beyond the cliffs. The orange evening light transformed every flower into something almost magical. Near the cottage porch, the old wooden wind spinner turned lazily. Its quiet creaking blended perfectly with the distant rhythm of the waves. Nothing interrupted the peaceful silence. Inside the cottage, the warmth of the afternoon still remained. Fresh bread rested beneath a folded linen cloth upon the kitchen table. The scent of rosemary, thyme, and baked apples drifted softly through the little rooms. Elias carefully placed the basket upon the counter before removing each item one by one. The bread found its place inside a wooden bread box. The herbs were hung beside the kitchen window. The remaining cinnamon bun rested upon a small blue plate. "For later," he said with a smile, "I've learned never to underestimate evening tea." You laughed quietly. "I think that's excellent advice." The old brass clock above the fireplace chimed softly. 4 slow notes. Elias looked toward the staircase leading into the lighthouse tower. The lantern likes to be prepared early. It dislikes being rushed. You followed him once again through the narrow wooden door. The spiral staircase felt wonderfully familiar now. Every polished step welcomed your footsteps. The stone walls carried the cool scent of sea air mixed with cedar and old brass. Sunlight entered through the narrow windows in long golden beams. Dust floated peacefully through the light like tiny stars suspended in the air. Halfway up the staircase, Elias paused beside one of the windows. The village of Moonhaven stretched peacefully below. Fishing boats had begun returning to the harbor. Thin ribbons of smoke rose from cottage chimneys. Children played quietly near the shoreline while their parents prepared evening meals. "It always feels different from up here," you whispered. Elias nodded. "Distance has a gentle way of reminding us how peaceful ordinary life can be." The climb continued. When the lantern room door opened, the evening sun flooded the circular chamber with warm amber light. The crystal lenses shimmered brilliantly. Every polished surface reflected countless tiny golden sparks. The room seemed almost alive. Elias removed a soft white cloth from the workbench. Without speaking, he began carefully polishing each section of the great lens. His movements were slow, steady, practiced. There was no wasted motion, no hurry, only quiet attention. You watched the sunlight dance across the enormous glass panels as every gentle movement revealed another brilliant reflection. "It must take years to learn." Elias smiled without looking up. "It takes years to stop rushing." He carefully inspected each brass fitting, every hinge, every handle, every tiny screw. Nothing escaped his attention. The lantern deserves respect. It watches over people I'll probably never meet. The sentence settled softly into the peaceful room. Outside, the sky slowly began changing. The brilliant blue of afternoon faded toward gentle shades of gold. Clouds drifted lazily across the western horizon, their edges glowing with warm light. Far below, the sea reflected every changing color like polished glass. Several gulls circled the cliffs one final time before settling on their evening nests. The puffins disappeared into rocky burrows. Even the wind seemed quieter. Elias reached under the workbench and lifted a small brass oil can polished bright through decades of careful use. He filled the lantern with patient hands. Not a single drop spilled. When he finished, he gently closed the polished cover. "There. It will shine beautifully tonight." You walked slowly around the circular gallery outside the lantern room.
From here, the coastline stretched farther than ever before. The little village looked peaceful beneath the soft evening glow. The hidden cove sparkled quietly beyond the cliffs. Far out at sea, a single sailing ship moved gracefully toward the horizon. Its white sails caught the last warm light of the day. "Do you think they'll see the lighthouse tonight?" you asked. Elias looked toward the distant ship. "If they need it." His answer felt wonderfully complete. There was no need to explain further. The lighthouse had never demanded attention. It simply waited, ready whenever someone needed its light. As the sun slowly touched the distant horizon, the entire sea turned to molten gold. The sky became painted with gentle shades of amber, rose, lavender, and soft blue. For several peaceful minutes, neither of you spoke. The sunset deserved silence. At last, only a narrow ribbon of golden light remained above the sea. Elias rested one hand upon the lantern. "It's time." With one smooth movement, he turned the old brass mechanism. A quiet click echoed through the room. Then, slowly, the great lantern awakened. A warm, golden light blossomed within the crystal lens. It grew brighter, steadier, until its gentle beam reached across the quiet ocean. The first light of evening stretched gracefully over the calm water, welcoming another peaceful night. Far below, one tiny fishing boat answered with a single friendly wave before continuing safely towards Moonhaven Harbor. Elias smiled softly. "I believe someone has found their way home." Outside, twilight settled gently across the sea, while the ancient lighthouse began another quiet night of keeping watch above the endless waves.
The first beam of golden light swept silently across the water. It moved with remarkable grace, not too quickly, not too slowly, just steadily enough to reach every corner of the quiet sea before beginning another gentle circle around the horizon. For a few peaceful moments, neither of you spoke. The only sounds were the soft turning of the great lantern mechanism and the distant rhythm of the waves meeting the cliffs below. Outside, the evening sky continued changing. The last traces of orange faded gently into lavender. Soon, deep shades of blue began stretching across the heavens, welcoming the first tiny stars of the night. One by one they appeared, patiently, quietly, without asking for attention. The sea reflected them almost immediately. Tiny points of light shimmered across the calm water, as though the ocean itself wished to collect every star before morning arrived. Elias rested both hands upon the polished brass railing surrounding the lantern. "This is my favorite part." He spoke softly enough that the lighthouse almost seemed to answer. The moment when day thanks the night for arriving. You watched the beam complete another slow circle across the sea. Far in the distance, a fishing boat changed its course slightly. Its small lantern answered with a warm yellow glow. "They see us," you smiled. "And you see them." Elias nodded. "We've been greeting each other every evening for many years." Another gentle silence settled between you. It never felt empty. It felt comfortably full of waves, of wind, of quiet understanding. Eventually, Elias walked toward a small oak cabinet built into the curved stone wall. From inside, he carefully removed another weathered leather journal. Unlike the one downstairs, this one looked even older. The corners had become wonderfully rounded with time. Its pages carried the soft golden color that only many peaceful years could create. He opened it carefully. A fountain pen rested neatly between two pages. "Every evening deserves a few words," he smiled. "Otherwise, tomorrow might forget today." He dipped the pen into a small glass bottle of dark blue ink before writing slowly across the page. The handwriting flowed calmly. Every letter looked unhurried.
You quietly read the final lines. The sea remained gentle. The sunset was kind. The lantern welcomed another peaceful night. A traveler shared the evening. He closed the journal gently. That's enough. You don't write very much. I've learned that peaceful days rarely need long descriptions. The sentence stayed with you. Outside, darkness slowly settled across the coastline. Small lights began appearing inside the cottages of Moonhaven. Warm windows glowed beside flower gardens. Thin ribbons of chimney smoke drifted lazily upward before disappearing beneath the evening sky. From this height, the village resembled a handful of tiny stars resting beside the sea. The harbor had also grown quieter. Most fishing boats had already returned. Their sails were neatly folded, their ropes secured. The water around the docks barely moved. Only one small boat remained beyond the harbor entrance. Its single lantern glowed softly as it crossed the calm waves. Without saying anything, Elias gently adjusted the position of the great lens. The beam continued sweeping across the sea with perfect rhythm. The little boat slowly turned toward the harbor. Within minutes, it reached the safety of the docks. Elias smiled. Right on time. You always notice. I try to. The sea notices everyone. A cool breeze entered through the narrow ventilation windows near the top of the lantern room. It carried the refreshing scent of salt water mixed with blooming night flowers growing around the lighthouse gardens below. The air felt wonderfully clean, wonderfully calm. You stepped out onto the narrow circular balcony surrounding the lantern room. Above you stretched an endless sky filled with countless stars. Without the bright lights of large cities, every constellation appeared brilliantly clear. The Milky Way spread gently across the heavens like a river of silver mist. You had never seen so many stars. They're beautiful. Elias joined you quietly. They remind me something important. What is that? No matter how large the world feels, we never have to carry it alone. You looked toward the sea. The lighthouse beam continued its endless circle. The stars remained perfectly still above. The ocean breathed slowly beneath the cliffs. Everything felt beautifully balanced. After several peaceful minutes, a faint melody drifted upward from the village below. Someone was playing an old piano. The notes floated gently across the water before reaching the lighthouse. The tune was simple, soft, comforting, almost like a lullaby carried by the evening breeze. Elias listened with a smile. That's Mrs. Eleanor. She plays every night after supper. Does everyone hear it? I like to think so. The melody blended perfectly with the waves below. Together, they created a quiet harmony that seemed to belong only to Moonhaven. You closed your eyes for a brief moment. The cool sea breeze touched your face. The distant piano continued playing. The lighthouse turned faithfully above the cliffs. Somewhere below, cats curled beside fireplaces. Families gathered around warm evening meals. Fishing nets dried quietly upon wooden docks. The bakery prepared tomorrow's dough. The flowers folded their petals beneath the night sky. Everything in Moonhaven seemed to understand that evening was not the end of the day. It was simply another peaceful chapter. Elias looked toward the horizon where the lighthouse beam disappeared into the darkness before returning once more. It will be a clear night. Good weather for dreaming. You smiled. I think this lighthouse is becoming difficult to leave. He laughed softly. That happens. But tomorrow, he looked toward the stars. I'll show you the oldest place in Moonhaven, the place where every lighthouse keeper begins their first morning. The promise lingered gently beneath the quiet night sky, as the lighthouse continued sending its warm golden light across the peaceful sea, watching over every traveler until dawn returned once again.
A gentle knock came at your bedroom door long before sunrise. 3 quiet taps. Not urgent, simply kind. You slowly opened your eyes. For a brief moment, you simply listened. The cottage remained wonderfully peaceful. The fire downstairs had settled into glowing embers. Outside, the steady rhythm of the sea continued beneath the cliffs, unchanged from yesterday, unchanged perhaps for centuries. The world had not fully awakened. It seemed to be breathing slowly between dreams and morning. "Elias?" You spoke softly. "Whenever you're ready," came his calm reply from the hallway. "The sunrise doesn't mind waiting." You smiled to yourself. You dressed warmly before stepping downstairs. The cottage glowed gently beneath the soft light of 2 oil lamps. The familiar scent of cedar wood mixed with fresh coffee and warm oat porridge. A loaf of yesterday's bread rested beside a small jar of blackberry jam. The kettle quietly hummed upon the iron stove. Elias was already setting 2 bowls on the wooden table. "I thought we should have breakfast before our walk. I've learned that mornings are kinder with warm food." You laughed quietly. "I don't think I've disagreed with you once since I arrived." He smiled. "That's because the bakery keeps helping me." Together you enjoyed a simple breakfast. Warm porridge sweetened with a little honey, fresh bread still soft from yesterday, a few slices of ripe pear, steaming coffee for Elias, chamomile tea for you. Outside the windows, the sky remained a deep shade of blue. Only the faintest silver line rested along the eastern horizon. Soon you stepped outside. The cool morning air wrapped gently around your shoulders. Tiny drops of dew covered every blade of grass surrounding the lighthouse. The flowers still slept beneath the fading stars. Only a few early birds had begun singing from the nearby pines. The great lantern above the lighthouse still shone quietly across the sea. Its golden beam completed another slow circle before disappearing into the fading darkness. "It rests after sunrise," Elias said softly. "But until then, it keeps its promise." The narrow trail behind the lighthouse climbed gently toward higher ground. Unlike yesterday's coastal path, this trail wandered inland through quiet meadows filled with wildflowers. Tiny white daisies, blue cornflowers, soft purple heather, everything glistened beneath the morning dew. The silence felt different here, not empty, hopeful, as though the entire hillside waited patiently for the first sunlight. Small rabbits crossed the path ahead before disappearing into tall grass. A family of deer stood quietly near a grove of old oak trees. They watched you for only a moment before calmly returning to their breakfast. Nothing seemed frightened. Everything belonged. The climb remained gentle. After 20 peaceful minutes, the path opened onto a broad, grassy hill overlooking both the village and the sea. At its center stood a circle of ancient stones. Each pillar reached only shoulder height. Their gray surfaces carried patches of emerald moss and tiny white flowers growing between countless cracks. The stones had clearly stood here for a very long time, older than the lighthouse, older than the village itself, older perhaps than anyone living could remember. You approached slowly. "They're beautiful," Elias nodded. "This is Morning Circle, the oldest place in Moonhaven." He rested one hand upon one of the weathered stones. "Every lighthouse keeper begins here, no exceptions." You walked carefully around the circle. Every stone faced the eastern horizon, not perfectly, but close enough to welcome the sunrise together. There were no carvings, no grand monuments, only smooth stone shaped patiently by wind and rain. "What happens here?" Elias smiled. "Nothing." You looked at him curiously. He laughed softly, "And that's exactly why it's important."
He motioned toward a simple wooden bench resting beneath a nearby oak tree. "Sit." You did. The bench overlooked the entire coastline. Far below, Moonhaven remained asleep beneath a blanket of soft blue morning light. The harbor looked perfectly still. Fishing boats floated quietly at their docks. The lighthouse beam continued sweeping across the sea. Thin ribbons of chimney smoke had not yet begun rising from the cottages. Everything felt wonderfully untouched. Elias remained standing beside the ancient stones. "When I was young, my grandfather brought me here before my first day at the lighthouse. He didn't give me instructions. He didn't explain tides." "What did he say?" Elias smiled toward the brightening horizon. "He said, 'Before you learn to guide others, learn to enjoy stillness.'" The sentence settled gently over the hill. Neither of you spoke afterwards. There was nothing to add. The eastern sky slowly brightened. Deep blue became violet. Violet softened into rose. Rose welcomed gentle shades of gold. The first rays of sunlight touched the highest stone in the circle, then another, then another. Within moments, every ancient pillar glowed warmly beneath the new day. And almost the same instant, the great lantern far below quietly dimmed. Its work for the night was complete. The lighthouse had carried every traveler safely until morning. Now the sun would guide the sea. Elias watched the changing light with peaceful satisfaction. It happens every day, and somehow it always feels like the first sunrise. You understood exactly what he meant. Some moments never become ordinary, no matter how many times they return. A gentle breeze moved through the old oak trees. Their leaves whispered softly above the ancient stones. Birdsong spread across the hillside as more of the village slowly awakened below. Somewhere in the distance, the bakery chimney released its first ribbon of smoke. The new day had quietly begun. Elias looked toward the path leading further inland. "There is one more place I'd like you to see this morning, a place almost no visitor ever finds." Together you left the ancient stone circle behind, carrying the quiet peace of the sunrise with you as the winding meadow path disappeared gently into a forest of towering pines.
The meadow slowly disappeared behind you as the narrow path slipped beneath the shade of towering pine trees. Almost immediately, the air became cooler. The warm sunlight of the open hillside softened into long, golden beams that filtered gently through the branches overhead. The scent changed too. The fresh salt carried from the sea gradually blended with cedar, damp earth, wild moss, and the sweet fragrance of pine needles warming beneath the morning sun. Every breath felt wonderfully refreshing. The forest welcomed silence, not because it demanded it, but because speaking suddenly seemed unnecessary. The little path beneath your feet was covered with centuries of fallen pine needles. Each step became almost soundless. Even the breeze moved more gently here, whispering through the tall branches far above. Sunlight danced across the forest floor, creating shifting patterns that changed every time the leaves moved. Small patches of moss covered old stones resting beside the trail. Some stones were so completely wrapped in green that they appeared almost alive. Tiny mushrooms peeked from beneath fallen logs. Delicate ferns stretched gracefully toward the light. "This forest has always been older than the lighthouse," Elias said quietly. "It reminds us that we're only visitors." You nodded slowly. "It's peaceful," he smiled. "It enjoys kind company." A robin landed upon a nearby branch. It watched the two of you without the slightest sign of fear before singing a cheerful melody that echoed softly through the woods. Soon another answered from deeper within the forest, then another. The morning gradually filled with birdsong, not loud,
simply joyful, as though each bird wished to greet the new day in its own gentle voice. The path curved around an enormous pine tree, unlike any you had seen before. Its trunk was so wide that it would have taken several people holding hands to reach around it. The bark carried deep grooves formed by countless seasons. Its branches stretched high above the forest like the roof of a great cathedral. Elias rested one hand gently against the ancient trunk. My grandfather called this the listening tree. Why? He believed if you sat beneath it long enough, you remembered the things that truly mattered. You smiled. Did it work? Elias chuckled softly. I've been coming here for 30 years. I think it still is. Nearby, a crystal-clear stream flowed quietly between smooth stones. The water was so transparent that every pebble resting beneath its surface shimmered beautifully in the morning light. Tiny trout darted effortlessly through the gentle current. Dragonflies hovered above the water, their delicate wings catching flashes of sunlight whenever they changed direction. A small wooden bridge crossed the stream. It looked simple, handcrafted. Its railings had been polished smooth by many gentle hands over many peaceful years. You crossed slowly. The water below whispered softly as it continued its endless journey toward the sea. On the opposite bank stood a tiny wooden cabin. Unlike the lighthouse cottage, this one seemed even older. Its roof was covered with living moss. Small blue flowers bloomed beneath every window. Smoke curled lazily from a narrow stone chimney. It looked less like a house and more like a natural part of the forest itself. No one lives here permanently, Elias explained, but every lighthouse keeper spends one afternoon here each month. What do they do? He smiled. They listen. The cabin door opened with a gentle creak. Inside waited a single room filled with warmth. Shelves held carefully arranged books about birds, trees, flowers, clouds, and the changing seasons. A small stone fireplace glowed quietly in one corner. Two comfortable rocking chairs faced a wide window overlooking the stream. A simple wooden table held fresh wildflowers gathered that very morning. Everything felt wonderfully uncomplicated. There were no clocks, no calendars, nothing that hurried time along, only peace. Elias placed a small kettle above the fire. I always make pine needle tea here. It tastes like the forest itself. Soon the kettle began to hum quietly. The tea carried a fresh, gentle aroma, unlike anything you had tasted before. Warm, clean, comforting. As you sipped slowly, a squirrel scampered across the windowsill, carrying a tiny acorn before disappearing into the branches outside. Moments later, two deer wandered silently past the cabin. Neither seemed startled by your presence. The forest had accepted you, if only for a little while. After finishing your tea, Elias reached towards a shelf and removed a beautifully carved wooden box. Inside rested dozens of tiny handwritten notes folded into neat little squares. "What are these?" you asked. "Thoughts. Every lighthouse keeper leaves one behind." He unfolded one at random. It simply read, "The wind always knows where it belongs." Another said, "Take time to notice the birds." A third carried only one sentence, "Kindness travels farther than light." You smiled quietly. "They're beautiful." "They're reminders." Elias carefully returned every note into the little box. People often think the lighthouse teaches patience, but the forest teaches gratitude. Outside, sunlight continued drifting gently across the stream. The birds sang without interruption. The breeze moved through the ancient pines with the softest whisper imaginable.
Nothing asked for attention. Everything simply existed, peacefully. As the morning slowly approached noon, Elias stood and opened the cabin door once more. The tide will begin changing soon. I'd like to show you something the sea only reveals for a few hours each day. You stepped outside together. The forest remained just as calm as when you had entered, its towering pines quietly watching over the winding path behind you. Ahead, sunlight filtered through the trees toward the distant coastline, where another hidden wonder patiently waited for the turning of the tide.
Tonight, there is nowhere you need to be, except here. So, if you're comfortably settled beneath a warm blanket, perhaps close your eyes whenever they begin to feel heavy. Let the worries of the day drift away, like waves slipping quietly back into the sea. There are no mysteries demanding answers tonight, no dangers waiting beyond the horizon, and no hurried footsteps to follow. Only the steady rhythm of the ocean, only the soft whisper of the wind, only the warm glow of a lighthouse that has patiently welcomed travelers for longer than anyone can remember. Our journey begins long before the sun rises, along an old coastal road that very few people seem to notice anymore. The road is narrow, not abandoned, simply forgotten. Wild grasses sway gently on either side, their silver tips glistening beneath tiny drops of morning dew. Smooth stones line the edges of the path, softened by centuries of rain and sea air. Far ahead, beyond rolling green cliffs, you hear the ocean before you see it. A slow, endless rhythm, comforting. Each wave rises, each wave falls. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands attention. The sea has all the time in the world. The farther you walk, the cooler the air becomes. The scent of pine forests slowly gives way to salt carried upon a gentle breeze. Somewhere overhead, a single gull circles quietly through pale morning mist. Its call drifts across the empty coastline before disappearing into the fog. The world feels wonderfully still. Soon the road begins climbing, not steeply, just enough to lift you above the sleeping shoreline. The first glimpse of the sea appears between tall cliffs. It stretches endlessly towards the horizon, calm beneath a blanket of silver mist that hides where water meets sky. There is something peaceful about not seeing the end. The unknown becomes comforting. The unseen becomes gentle. As you continue, the old stone road curves around a hillside covered with tiny white flowers. Their delicate petals sway together whenever the breeze passes, almost like waves moving across a quiet meadow. No houses appear, no villages. Only cliffs, grass, sea, and sky. Then, very slowly, you notice it. At first, it looks like another rocky cliff rising from the coast. But as the morning mist shifts, a tall stone tower quietly reveals itself. The lighthouse. Its weathered gray stones have stood against countless storms. Its round windows catch the first hints of dawn. Its lantern room rests proudly at the very top, surrounded by polished glass that still reflects even the faintest light. Unlike most lighthouses, this one feels surprisingly welcoming. Not lonely, not forgotten, simply patient.
A narrow path branches away from the old road and winds gently towards the cliffs. Wild lavender grows beside the trail. Small blue flowers peek between weathered stones. Tiny rabbits disappear into tall grass when you approach. Every step brings the lighthouse closer. Soon you begin hearing another sound beneath the steady rhythm of the sea. A small bell. Soft, unhurried. It rings only every few moments. The breeze carries its gentle tone across the cliffs before allowing silence to return once again. No sign tells you where you have arrived. No wooden board announces the name of this place. Yet somehow it already feels familiar. The narrow trail ends beside a weathered wooden gate. Beyond it stands the lighthouse. Closer now, you notice beautiful climbing ivy wrapping gently around portions of the old stone walls. Window boxes overflow with colorful flowers. White roses, blue hydrangeas, little yellow daisies. Clearly someone cares for this place. A smooth stone path leads towards a small cottage resting beside the tower. Thin ribbons of smoke rise peacefully through its chimney. The comforting scent of fresh bread drifts quietly through the cool sea air. Not far away, several wooden benches overlook the endless ocean. Each faces west, as though inviting visitors to watch countless sunsets. An old brass telescope rests near the cliff edge. Its polished surface catches the growing morning light. Beside it sits a wooden table holding 2 empty teacups. Someone was here recently. Or perhaps someone is always here. The cottage door opens gently. An elderly man steps outside carrying a small watering can. His silver hair moves softly in the sea breeze beneath a knitted navy blue cap. His thick wool sweater has clearly been mended many times, not because it is worn beyond saving, but because it has always been worth keeping. Without appearing surprised to see you, he smiles warmly. "Good morning." His voice carries the same calm rhythm as the ocean itself. "I was beginning to think you might arrive after sunrise." You smile politely. "I hope I'm not too early." He chuckles softly. Out here, he looks towards the endless sea. Nobody is ever too early. And nobody is ever too late. He walks slowly towards the flower beds surrounding the lighthouse, watering each bloom with patient care. Every movement feels practiced, comfortable, peaceful. Elias continues. "My name is Elias. I look after the light." He says it so naturally that it almost sounds ordinary, as though tending one lighthouse is the simplest occupation in the world. You glance upward towards the great lantern resting above. It must be lonely. Elias smiles without looking up. I've never found kindness to be lonely. He gently touches a blooming white rose. The sea keeps wonderful company. The waves answer below, slow, steady, timeless. A pair of puffins lands upon the nearby cliffs, watching quietly before disappearing into their rocky nests. Far below, gentle waves curl around smooth black stones, polished by centuries of tides. The morning mist begins lifting little by little. Golden sunlight slowly spreads across the ocean, transforming silver water into shimmering ribbons of gold. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. There is no need. The silence feels complete, peaceful, comfortable. Like two old friends watching another beautiful morning begin. Somewhere inside the cottage, a kettle begins to whistle softly. Elias smiles. I believe the tea is ready.
The little wooden memory box rested comfortably in Elias's hands as the two of you continued along the winding coastal trail. The afternoon had grown quieter. The gentle warmth of the sun softened as thin white clouds drifted lazily across the blue sky. Their shadows glided silently over the sea, painting the water with moving patches of silver and sapphire. The harbor workshop slowly disappeared behind you. Only the faint scent of fresh cedar lingered in the cool ocean breeze. "What did you keep inside your memory box?" you asked. Elias smiled without looking down. "The first thing?" He thought for a moment. "A feather." "A feather?" "From the first gull that landed beside the lighthouse after I became its keeper." You smiled. "That seems wonderfully simple." "It was," he laughed quietly. "But every time I saw it, I remembered that even the birds had accepted me." The path curved gently upward toward another grassy bluff overlooking the sea. Near the top stood an enormous weathered oak tree. Its branches stretched wide across the hillside, offering cool shade beneath hundreds of softly rustling leaves. Beneath the tree rested a beautifully carved wooden bench. Unlike the others you had seen around Moonhaven, this one carried tiny carvings of waves, stars, seashells, and lanterns along its backrest. Elias stopped. "This has always been my favorite place to rest." The two of you sat quietly. From here, the entire coastline unfolded before you. The lighthouse stood proudly upon its cliff. The village nestled peacefully beside the harbor. The hidden island was now completely surrounded by water once again. No trace of the tide path remained, only calm sea stretching toward the horizon. "It disappears so completely," you whispered. "The path?" Elias nodded. "And tomorrow? It will return." The thought felt comforting. Some beautiful things simply kept coming back. Far below, a pod of dolphins surfaced together before disappearing beneath the gentle waves. Their smooth backs caught the afternoon sunlight for only a second before the sea welcomed them once again. "They visit often?" "Almost every week. They seem to enjoy this coastline. They have excellent taste." Both of you laughed softly. Nearby, a gentle flutter interrupted the silence. Several butterflies drifted lazily through the wildflowers surrounding the bench. Yellow, white, pale blue, they moved so effortlessly that they almost appeared to float instead of fly. One landed briefly on the edge of Elias's sleeve before continuing its quiet journey across the meadow. "I've always admired butterflies," he said. "They never seem to hurry." A cool breeze wandered across the bluff. Tall grasses swayed together like gentle waves upon a green sea.
Wild lavender released its delicate fragrance into the afternoon air. Somewhere farther down the hillside, sheep bells chimed softly as a small flock grazed peacefully among the flowers. The sound blended perfectly with the distant rhythm of the ocean. After several quiet minutes, Elias stood. "I'd like to show you someone." "You've already introduced me to nearly the whole village." He smiled. "Not quite." The path turned inland once more. This section wound through rolling meadows dotted with tiny stone walls built generations ago. Wildflowers spilled over every edge. Apple trees stretched across the nearby fields, their branches heavy with ripening fruit. Soon the meadow opened onto a small cottage surrounded by one of the most beautiful gardens you had ever seen. Every path was lined with flowers. Roses climbed wooden arches, sunflowers nodded gently toward the afternoon sun. Lavender bordered winding stone walkways. Tiny fountains trickled peacefully among beds of colorful blossoms. Bees hummed happily from flower to flower. At the center of the garden knelt an elderly woman wearing a wide straw hat. She carefully trimmed a rose bush before noticing your arrival. "Elias!" Her smile brightened immediately. "You've come just in time." "I was hoping you hadn't finished the lemon cake." She laughed. "I should know better to bake without expecting you." Turning towards you, she smiled warmly. "And you've brought another guest." "I have." "This is Margaret," Elias said gently. "She grows nearly every flower in Moonhaven." Margaret laughed. "Only the ones willing to grow." She invited you through the little wooden gate. The garden felt almost magical. Tiny birds hopped fearlessly between flower beds. A family of rabbits rested under a hedge of white roses. Several wooden birdhouses hung from old apple trees, each painted a different cheerful color. "You've made this place beautiful," you said. Margaret shook her head kindly. "The flowers did most of the work." She led you toward a small round table beneath a flowering pergola. Fresh lemonade rested inside a glass pitcher beside slices of warm lemon cake dusted lightly with powdered sugar. The scent of citrus mixed beautifully with lavender carried on the afternoon breeze. "I always believe gardens taste better with visitors," Margaret said. The three of you enjoyed the simple afternoon treat, while butterflies wandered lazily through the blossoms around you. Margaret pointed toward one corner of the garden where hundreds of tiny blue flowers bloomed together. "My husband planted those many years ago. They still return every spring. They're beautiful. They remind me that love is patient." Her words settled gently into the quiet garden. No sadness accompanied them, only gratitude. As the afternoon continued, Margaret filled a small basket with fresh herbs, lavender bundles, and several bright yellow lemons. She handed it to Elias. "For this evening." "Thank you. You always know what the cottage needs." She smiled. "I've had plenty of practice." Before leaving, you wandered one last time through the peaceful garden. A robin sang from the branch of an apple tree. A tiny stone path disappeared beneath an arch covered with climbing roses. The fountain continued its quiet song. Everything felt lovingly cared for. As you and Elias stepped back onto the meadow trail, the lighthouse came into view once more, glowing softly beneath the golden afternoon sky. Its white tower stood peacefully above the cliffs, waiting for another evening when its gentle light would once again guide every traveler safely across the calm sea.
The basket Margaret had prepared rested comfortably over Elias's arm as the two of you left the garden behind. The fresh scent of lavender, rosemary, and lemon followed you along the narrow meadow path, mixing gently with the cool breeze that drifted inland from the sea. The afternoon had begun its quiet journey toward evening. The sunlight was softer now, casting long golden shadows across the rolling fields. Every blade of grass shimmered beneath the gentle light, while wildflowers nodded peacefully whenever the breeze wandered across the hillside. For several minutes, neither of you spoke. There was no need.
The silence felt warm, like an old friend walking beside you. Far ahead, the white tower of Moonhaven Lighthouse stood against the sky, its lantern room catching the afternoon sun like a polished jewel. "It always seems to know where home is," you said. Elias smiled. "Perhaps that's because so many people think of it that way." The path slowly curved around another grassy hill. Beyond it, the sea stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The water had changed again. Earlier, it had been bright blue. Now it carried gentle shades of silver, turquoise, and pale gold beneath the lowering sun. "It changes every hour." "The sea?" Elias nodded. "That's why I never grow tired of looking at it." Soon the trail crossed a tiny wooden bridge. A clear stream flowed quietly beneath it, making its slow journey toward the ocean. Small trout rested in the deeper pools, while dragonflies skimmed effortlessly across the surface. Nearby stood an old water wheel attached to a stone mill. Unlike many old buildings, this one was still very much alive. The wheel turned slowly with the current, producing a quiet wooden rhythm that blended beautifully with the sound of flowing water. A painted wooden sign welcomed visitors. "Moonhaven Mill, fresh flour every morning." The large doors stood open. Inside, warm sunlight poured through wide windows onto polished wooden floors dusted lightly with flour. The comforting scent of fresh grain filled the air. An elderly man carefully adjusted several cloth sacks stacked neatly beside a large wooden grinder. He looked up immediately. "Elias, I thought I'd hear your footsteps today." Elias laughed. "I've come for tomorrow's bread." The miller smiled warmly. "And you've brought company." You introduced yourself. "I'm Arthur." He extended a strong, flour-covered hand. "I've looked after this mill longer than I can remember." The massive wooden gears turned quietly behind him. Nothing moved quickly. Everything followed the slow rhythm of the stream outside. Arthur noticed with curiosity. "Would you like to see how the grain becomes flour?" You nodded. He gently poured a handful of golden wheat into the stone grinder. The great millstones turned steadily, slowly, patiently. Within moments, soft white flour began collecting beneath the stones. Arthur scooped a little into his hand. Good bread begins with patience. "Everything worth making usually does," Elias smiled. "I've been telling visitors the same thing for years." Arthur laughed. "Then you've been listening." Rows of shelves held cloth bags filled with flour ready for the village bakery. Nearby rested jars containing oats, barley, rye, and cornmeal. Every label had been written carefully by hand. Nothing looked rushed, nothing looked mass-produced. Everything reflected quiet care. Arthur reached under the counter and removed a small cloth pouch. He handed it to Elias. "Fresh flour. The baker asked me to save this for tomorrow morning." Elias thanked him warmly before carefully placing it into Margaret's basket. Near one corner of the mill stood an old wooden rocking chair facing the open doorway. Beside it rested a thick book. Its pages looked worn from many peaceful afternoons. "You read here?" Arthur nodded. "Every day after lunch." "What do you read?" "Mostly poetry." He smiled. The sound of the water helps the words settle. Outside, the turning water wheel continued its gentle song. The stream sparkled beneath the afternoon light. Several ducks floated lazily downstream before disappearing beneath overhanging willow branches. After thanking Arthur, you stepped back onto the meadow trail. The path gradually climbed another gentle hill before opening onto one of the most breathtaking views yet. The entire valley stretched below. The village, the harbor, the forests, the cliffs, the lighthouse.
Everything rested peacefully beneath the warm golden light of late afternoon. Tiny trails of chimney smoke had begun rising from several cottages. The bakery chimney joined them a few moments later. Even from this distance, the comforting aroma of fresh bread somehow found its way across the fields. "It smells impossible," Elias laughed softly. "I've stopped questioning it." The breeze became cooler. Several swallows flew gracefully overhead, weaving effortlessly through the open sky before disappearing toward the harbor. They're returning home. They always know when evening is close. You watched them until they became tiny dark shapes against the glowing horizon. The meadow path continued downhill toward the lighthouse. Along the way stood dozens of smooth stone markers, each no taller than your knee. Wildflowers surrounded every one. You slowed your pace. "What are these?" Elias's expression softened. "They're remembrance stones. There aren't any names." "No, they don't need them." He gently rested his hand on one weathered stone. "Each one honors someone who once cared for this village. Teachers, fishermen, bakers, gardeners, lighthouse keepers. They're remembered together." A peaceful silence settled once more. The wind moved gently through the tall grass surrounding the stones. Small white butterflies drifted quietly among the flowers. Nothing about the place felt sad. Instead, it felt grateful. As the two of you continued walking, the lighthouse slowly grew larger with every step. Its white walls glowed warmly beneath the golden afternoon sky. Far out across the calm sea, the first fishing boats had already begun turning toward home. Another peaceful evening was slowly approaching. The lighthouse waited patiently upon the cliffs, ready once again to shine when the sun finally slipped beneath the endless horizon.
As you stepped off the last stone of the tide path, you turned back for one final look. The little island seemed almost unchanged. The tiny white chapel rested peacefully beneath its ancient oak trees, while gentle waves slowly covered the path that had connected it to the mainland only moments before. Little by little, the sea reclaimed every smooth stone. Within half an hour, there would be no sign that a walkway had ever existed, only calm blue water stretching across the quiet bay. "It always amazes me," you said softly. Elias smiled. "The sea has a wonderful way of reminding us that some beautiful things aren't meant to last forever." You watched another small wave slide gently across the disappearing path. "I think that's what makes them beautiful. I've always believed so." The afternoon sun had begun its slow descent toward the western sky. Its light had softened now, painting the cliffs with warm shades of honey and gold. A gentle breeze drifted across the bay, carrying the scent of sea salt, blooming lavender, and something wonderfully familiar: fresh bread. You laughed quietly. "The bakery again?" Elias grinned. "They've probably taken another batch from the oven. I don't know how they manage to make the entire village smell comforting. They've had generations of practice." The two of you continued walking along the narrow coastal trail. This section of the path stayed close to the sea, winding gently between low grassy hills covered with tiny wildflowers. Every few minutes, another breathtaking view opened before you. Hidden coves sparkled beneath the afternoon sunlight. Smooth black rocks rested quietly beneath crystal-clear water. Small fishing boats drifted peacefully near the horizon. Nothing hurried, nothing interrupted the rhythm of the waves. After several minutes, the trail rounded a rocky hillside. There, tucked beneath the cliffs, stood a tiny boathouse built from weathered cedar wood. Its roof was covered with bright green moss.
Flower pots rested beside the front door. A little wooden sign swung gently above the entrance. It simply read, "Harbor Workshop." The large doors stood open. Inside, an elderly craftsman carefully sanded the side of a small wooden rowboat. Every movement was slow and patient. Wood shavings curled gently onto the floor around his feet. The scent of freshly cut cedar filled the little workshop. He looked up as you entered. "Elias." "Good afternoon, Thomas." Thomas smiled warmly. "I've nearly finished her." He gently brushed his hand across the smooth wooden hull. The little boat gleamed beautifully beneath the afternoon light. "You built it yourself?" you asked. Thomas nodded. "Every piece, even the oars." He picked one up proudly. "The sea deserves well-made things." Rows of carefully crafted boats rested inside the workshop. Some were large enough for fishing. Others were tiny rowing boats painted in cheerful shades of blue, green, cream, and red. Not one looked exactly like another. Each seemed to have its own quiet personality. Thomas noticed your curiosity. "I've never liked building the same boat twice." "Why not?" He smiled kindly. "People aren't the same, so why should their boats be?" Elias laughed softly. "I've been trying to explain that to visitors for years." Near one wall stood shelves filled with small wooden carvings, lighthouses, seabirds, tiny cottages, whales, sailing ships. Every piece had been carved with remarkable care. You picked up a tiny lighthouse no taller than your hand. Its windows had been carefully shaped. Even the little lantern room was perfectly detailed. Thomas smiled kindly. "I carve one every winter to remember another peaceful year." You gently placed it back. "They're beautiful. They're patient," Thomas corrected kindly. "Beautiful comes later." Those words stayed with you. Outside the workshop, the sea continued its endless conversation with the shore. A pair of pelicans glided low across the water before landing beyond the harbor rocks. Farther along the beach, children carefully collected smooth shells into little woven baskets. One little girl ran toward Thomas, holding something in both hands. "I found one." She opened her fingers. Inside rested a tiny piece of sea glass, soft green, perfectly smooth. Thomas examined it with great seriousness. "An excellent treasure. You should keep it." She smiled brightly before skipping happily back toward the shoreline. Elias watched her go. The village has always been good at teaching people to notice small things. I think that's why everyone seems so peaceful. He nodded. When people stop chasing everything, they begin appreciating what's already here. The afternoon breeze grew cooler. Several white clouds drifted slowly across the bright blue sky. Their reflections floated across the calm water like soft brushstrokes upon glass. Thomas carefully covered the little rowboat with a linen cloth. "I'll launch her tomorrow morning." "For who?" "A young couple. They're moving to the neighboring island." He smiled. "I hope she carries many happy journeys." Before leaving, Thomas handed Elias a small wooden box no larger than a loaf of bread. "I finished polishing it." Elias accepted it carefully. "Thank you." You looked curiously at the box. "What is it?" "A Lantern Keeper's memory box," Thomas answered before Elias could. "Every keeper receives one." The smooth cedar lid carried a beautifully carved compass rose surrounded by tiny stars. It looked almost too beautiful to use. "What goes inside?" Thomas smiled gently. "Whatever reminds you to be grateful. Nothing more, nothing less." As you left the workshop, the little bell above the door chimed softly behind you.
The coastal trail continued toward the lighthouse, now glowing warmly beneath the gentle afternoon sun. The sea breeze carried the distant sound of gulls returning toward the cliffs. Farther above, the white tower waited patiently against the endless sky, while the peaceful village quietly prepared for another calm evening beside the ocean.
The lighthouse stood quietly at the top of the cliffs, its white stone walls glowing beneath the warm light of the late afternoon sun. From this distance, it looked almost timeless, as though it had always belonged to the coastline, and always would. The path beneath your feet slowly changed from soft meadow grass to smooth stone. Every few moments the breeze carried another familiar mixture of scents: salt from the sea, wild lavender from the hills, fresh bread from the village, smoke from evening fireplaces beginning to awaken. Moonhaven was preparing for another peaceful night. Elias slowed as you reached the lighthouse garden. The flowers looked even more beautiful than they had that morning. Golden light rested gently upon every rose, every lavender bush, every tiny white daisy growing along the stone walkway. Several bees made their final visits before disappearing toward their hives. A robin landed upon the wooden fence, singing one cheerful melody before fluttering into the nearby apple tree. "It changes every evening," Elias said. "The garden?" He nodded. "It never greets the sunset exactly the same way twice." You stood quietly beside him, watching the soft breeze move through the flowers like gentle waves across a colorful sea. Nothing seemed hurried. Nothing felt unfinished. Even the shadows stretching across the grass appeared peaceful. Inside the cottage, the warm smell of cedar welcomed you once again. Elias carefully unpacked the basket. Margaret's lemons rested inside a wooden bowl. Fresh rosemary and thyme were hung beside the kitchen window. Arthur's flower was placed carefully upon the pantry shelf. Everything found its place naturally. "This cottage has a habit of organizing itself," Elias joked. "I think you're giving yourself too little credit." He laughed. "Perhaps." He placed a black kettle upon the stove. Soon the gentle crackle of burning wood filled the room. The fire glowed warmly inside the stone fireplace. Its soft orange light danced across the old wooden beams overhead. Outside, the afternoon slowly surrendered to evening. Sunlight entering through the windows became softer with every passing minute. Long golden beams stretched across the wooden floor before gradually fading into gentle amber. Elias opened a small cupboard and removed 2 old ceramic mugs painted with tiny blue lighthouses. "I've used these for years. They still look new. They've simply learned how to grow old gracefully." Steam slowly rose from the kettle. He poured hot water over fragrant herbs Margaret had gathered only hours earlier. Soon the room filled with the soothing aroma of mint, chamomile, and lemon. You wrapped your hands around the warm mug. The heat felt comforting after the cool sea breeze outside. The first sip tasted gentle, fresh, calming, exactly what the evening seemed to ask for. For several minutes neither of you spoke. The crackling fire seemed perfectly happy to fill the silence. From somewhere outside came the distant cry of a gull returning toward the cliffs. The lighthouse above remained still, patient, waiting for the coming night. Elias finally stood. "I have one small tradition before every sunset." He walked toward a narrow wooden shelf above the fireplace. Upon it rested dozens of smooth seashells collected over many years. Large seashells, tiny seashells, white, cream, soft shades of pink. Every one looked carefully chosen. He picked up a small spiral shell no larger than his thumb. "I found this on my first evening here." He handed it to you. Its surface felt remarkably smooth. The edges had been polished gently by countless tides. "I've kept it ever since." "You've never taken it home?" Elias smiled. "This is home." The answer felt wonderfully simple. He carefully returned the shell to its place.
Beside it rested several tiny bottles filled with colorful beach sand. Each carried a handwritten date. Different years? Every first day of spring. You collect sand? Only one little bottle. So I remember another year has begun. The shelves held no expensive treasures, only quiet memories, simple reminders of ordinary days that had quietly become extraordinary simply because someone had noticed them. Outside, a gentle bell echoed across the village. One slow note drifted toward the lighthouse before disappearing into the sea breeze. The bakery closes. Elias smiled. They ring that bell every evening. Why? So everyone remembers to slow down. You looked toward the village through the cottage window. Warm lights had begun appearing inside the cottages. Children walked home carrying little baskets. Cats stretched lazily upon sunny stone walls before finding comfortable places to sleep. Thin ribbons of smoke rose peacefully into the evening sky. Everything seemed wrapped in golden light. The sun now rested just above the horizon. Its reflection stretched across the sea like a glowing pathway reaching endlessly into the distance. Elias reached for his navy blue coat hanging beside the door. It won't be long now. The lantern? He nodded. Every evening deserves the same care as the one before it. Together you stepped outside. The garden glowed beneath the soft colors of sunset. Orange, gold, rose, lavender. The sky seemed almost too beautiful to describe. Far below, the harbor had become wonderfully quiet. Most of the fishing boats had already returned. Their reflections rested peacefully upon the calm water. Only one small sail remained visible beyond the bay. It moved slowly toward home. The cool evening breeze brushed gently across your face. The lighthouse tower cast a long, graceful shadow over the hillside. Its white walls reflected the final warmth of the setting sun. Above, the lantern room windows sparkled brilliantly. They looked almost like tiny stars waiting patiently for darkness. Elias rested one hand upon the old wooden gate surrounding the garden. My grandfather used to tell me something every evening. What was that? He smiled softly. He said, "Never think of lighting the lantern as ending the day. Think of it as helping someone else's tomorrow begin safely." The words drifted gently into the evening air. Together you began climbing the familiar spiral staircase once more. The polished stone steps echoed quietly beneath your feet. Outside, the final rays of sunlight slipped slowly beneath the distant horizon. One by one, the first evening stars appeared above the calm sea. The lighthouse was ready. So was another peaceful night.
The familiar spiral staircase welcomed your footsteps with the same quiet echo that had become so comforting over the past few days. The polished stone beneath your feet carried the coolness of the old lighthouse, while the scent of cedar, brass, and fresh sea air drifted gently through the tower. Above, the lantern room waited patiently beneath the deepening evening sky. Neither of you hurried. There was no reason to. Every step seemed to belong exactly where it was. Halfway up the staircase, you paused beside one of the narrow windows. Outside, the coastline had changed once again. The sun had slipped completely below the horizon. Only a ribbon of warm amber remained where the sea met the sky. Above it, soft shades of lavender slowly faded into deep blue. The first bright star shimmered quietly above the western horizon. "It always begins with one," Elias said. "The stars?" He nodded. Then suddenly you noticed there were hundreds all along. You smiled. "I think Moonhaven has taught me to notice things. It has a habit of doing that." The climb continued until the heavy oak door opened into the lantern room. The great crystal lens glowed faintly beneath the last traces of evening light. Its polished brass frame reflected tiny golden highlights that slowly faded as darkness settled over the sea. Elias walked toward the mechanism with calm confidence. Every movement felt familiar. Every gesture carried decades of quiet practice. He checked the lantern carefully. The oil reservoir, the polished glass, the turning gears, each received the same careful attention as every evening before. There, he smiled gently, ready. Outside, darkness spread peacefully across the coastline. One by one, warm lights appeared inside the cottages below. From this height, they looked like tiny stars scattered across the village. The bakery windows still glowed softly. The harbor lanterns reflected upon the calm water. The mill stood quietly beside its turning wheel. Margaret's little cottage shone warmly among the gardens. Even the distant forest appeared peaceful beneath the growing night. The lighthouse beam slowly came alive. Its warm golden light swept gracefully across the ocean. The great lens turned with its steady rhythm. Again and again. Always patient, always faithful. Far beyond the cliffs, a fishing boat answered with a small lantern of its own. Then another, then another. Tiny lights moved gently across the sea like quiet conversations between old friends. They always wave without waving. You look toward Elias. What do you mean? They never speak. They simply leave their lanterns burning, and somehow we understand each other. The room fell comfortably silent. Only the soft ticking of the lantern mechanism filled the air. It sounded almost like the heartbeat of the lighthouse itself, steady, reliable, peaceful. Elias walked toward the large telescope beside the eastern window. He adjusted it slightly before stepping aside. The moon will rise soon. You looked through the polished brass telescope. At first, there was only darkness stretching endlessly across the horizon. Then, a pale silver glow appeared beyond the sea. Slowly, almost shyly, the full moon lifted itself above the distant water. Its reflection stretched across the calm ocean like a pathway made entirely of silver. The waves shimmered beneath its light. Every ripple sparkled softly. "It's beautiful," Elias nodded. "I've watched it thousands of times, and somehow I still forget to blink." You laughed quietly. "I understand why." The moon continued climbing higher. Its gentle light transformed the cliffs into soft silver shapes. The lighthouse tower cast a long shadow across the hillside. Wildflowers below seemed almost white beneath the moonlight. Everything looked quieter, gentler, dreamlike. A sudden flutter of wings caught your attention. Several owls glided silently above the meadow beyond the lighthouse garden. They moved so gracefully that they seemed almost weightless. "They hunt every evening," Elias whispered. "They've shared these cliffs longer than people have." A family of foxes appeared briefly near the edge of the forest. They paused only long enough to look toward the lighthouse before disappearing into the tall grass. Far below, the harbor remained perfectly calm. The boats rested quietly at their moorings. Their reflections barely moved upon the glass-like water. Only the occasional ripple from passing a fish disturbed the surface. Inside the lanterned room, the warmth remained comforting despite the cool night air drifting through the upper vents. Elias poured 2 small cups of warm herbal tea from a polished metal flask. "I always bring this upstairs." "You drink tea while working?" He smiled. "The lighthouse enjoys good company." The tea carried gentle notes of mint and honey. Its warmth spread pleasantly through the cool evening. For a while, you both simply watched the night. No conversation felt necessary. The stars multiplied until the entire sky glittered with countless points of light. Constellations stretched from horizon to horizon. The Milky Way shimmered overhead like a river flowing silently across the heavens. Without city lights, every star seemed brighter than the last. "It reminds you how large the world really is," you spoke almost in a whisper. Elias looked upward. "And how peaceful it can be." A shooting star crossed the northern sky. Just one, a brief silver line disappearing almost as quickly as it appeared. Neither of you spoke. Some moments deserved only quiet appreciation. The lighthouse beam continued turning. Its warm light reached farther than the eye could follow. Somewhere beyond the darkness, unseen sailors would notice its comforting glow. Families would know someone was safely finding their way home. Travelers would feel a little less alone.
The lighthouse asked for nothing in return. It simply continued shining. As midnight slowly approached, the village lights began disappearing one by one. The bakery grew dark. The mill rested. Garden windows closed gently. Only the lighthouse remained awake above the cliffs, faithfully watching over the quiet sea beneath a sky filled with endless stars. You leaned gently against the polished brass railing. The steady turning of the great lantern, the whisper of the ocean below, and the cool night breeze created a peaceful rhythm like nothing you had ever known. For the first time since arriving in Moonhaven, it felt as though the lighthouse itself had accepted you as part of its quiet nightly tradition. And beneath the endless stars, surrounded by calm sea and gentle light, you understood why some people spent an entire lifetime here without ever wishing to leave.
The quiet rhythm of the lighthouse continued long after the village had fallen asleep. Its great lantern turned with calm precision, sending its warm golden beam across the moonlit sea every few seconds. Each sweep disappeared into the darkness before returning once again, steady as breathing, constant as the tides themselves. You had lost all sense of time. Minutes no longer seemed important. The only clock that mattered was the slow movement of the waves against the cliffs below. Elias stood beside one of the tall windows, looking out toward the open ocean. His expression carried the peaceful familiarity of someone who had watched thousands of nights unfold from this very room. "I used to think every night was the same," he said quietly. "But they're not." You looked toward him. "What changes?" "The sounds." He smiled. "The sea never tells the same story twice." You listened more carefully. At first, there seemed to be only silence. Then little details slowly appeared. The distant splash of waves rolling gently over smooth rocks, the soft cry of an owl somewhere inland, the quiet creak of the lighthouse as old timbers settled into the cool night air. Far below, tiny ripples tapped gently against the harbor docks. The wind brushed softly around the lantern room windows. Every sound belonged exactly where it was. Nothing interrupted another. Everything moved together like a peaceful piece of music. Elias reached toward a small wooden cabinet tucked beneath the staircase. Inside rested several old charts, rolled neatly with faded blue ribbons. He carefully selected one before spreading it across a polished oak table. The paper had yellowed with age. The edges were soft from decades of careful handling. "This coastline has been drawn many times." You leaned closer. Unlike modern maps, this one contained tiny hand-painted details. Little seabirds flew above illustrated waves. Small fishing boats floated beside carefully painted harbors. Wildflowers decorated the empty corners. Even the lighthouse had been drawn with remarkable affection. "It feels like a painting." Elias nodded. "The cartographer stayed here for an entire summer. He said maps should remind people why places matter." His finger rested upon a tiny island beyond Moonhaven, the chapel, then another mark, the forest cabin, another, the morning circle. Every peaceful place you had visited over the past days appeared quietly upon the old chart. Somehow seeing them together made Moonhaven feel even more special, not because it was large, but because every corner seemed connected by kindness. Outside, clouds drifted slowly across the moon. For a few moments, the silver light softened, the ocean darkened. Only the warm beam of the lighthouse continued shining with quiet certainty. "It keeps going no matter what." You watched the lantern complete another slow circle. Elias smiled. "That's the promise." The clouds gradually moved away again. Moonlight returned. The sea became silver once more. A small sailing boat appeared far beyond the cliffs. Its white sail glowed softly beneath the moon.
The captain raised a tiny lantern toward the lighthouse. The golden light answered as it completed another sweep across the water. Do they always do that? Sometimes. Not because they have to, but because gratitude has its own language. The little boat continued peacefully toward the distant horizon. Soon it disappeared beyond the edge of the night. The lighthouse remained, watching, waiting, shining. A gentle knock echoed from below. 3 slow taps. Elias smiled. That will be Noah. The baker? No, the night fisherman. A few moments later, steady footsteps climbed the spiral staircase. The heavy wooden door opened slowly. A broad-shouldered man wearing a thick navy sweater stepped inside, carrying a small woven basket. His beard was touched with silver, and his face held the calm smile of someone completely at home beside the sea. "Good evening, Elias." "Good evening, Noah. You've brought sandwiches again." "My wife insisted." He laughed softly. "She says nobody should watch over the sea on an empty stomach." He placed the basket upon the table. Inside rested neatly wrapped sandwiches, slices of apple, warm oat biscuits, and a small flask of fresh coffee. The comforting aroma filled the lantern room. Noah greeted you warmly before looking out across the sea. "Beautiful night." "It is," Elias agreed. "The tide has been kind." The 3 of you shared a quiet meal together. No one rushed. Between bites, conversation drifted naturally. They spoke about migrating birds that had returned earlier than usual, about dolphins spotted beyond the western cliffs, about Margaret's roses blooming especially well this season, about Arthur finishing another beautiful little rowboat. The conversations carried no complaints, only appreciation. Eventually, Noah stood. "My nets won't set themselves." Elias laughed. "They've never learned." Noah tipped his cap before beginning the long walk back down the spiral staircase. His footsteps slowly disappeared into the tower below. The room became quiet again. You looked toward Elias. "Everyone seems happy here." He thought for a long moment before answering. "I don't think happiness arrived first." "What do you mean?" "I think gratitude came first." He looked toward the sea, and happiness quietly followed. The sentence settled gently into the peaceful night. Outside, the moon climbed higher. Its reflection stretched farther across the calm ocean. Several seals rested on the rocks below, their soft shapes barely visible beneath the silver light. The lighthouse beam continued turning above them, steady, reliable, patient. You walked slowly around the circular gallery one more time. Every direction offered another peaceful view. The sleeping village, the silent forest, the endless sea, the distant stars. Everything felt wonderfully balanced. A cool breeze carried the scent of salt and wild lavender through the open windows. Somewhere below, waves continued their endless conversation with the cliffs. You closed your eyes for just a moment. The sound of the sea, the slow turning of the lantern, the whisper of the wind, the gentle creak of old wood. Together, they formed a quiet lullaby that seemed as old as Moonhaven itself. When you opened your eyes again, Elias was smiling toward the eastern horizon. "It won't be long now." "Until sunrise?" He nodded. "The sea always gives us the most beautiful colors just before dawn." The lighthouse continued its peaceful watch through the final hours of the night, faithfully guiding every traveler still crossing the calm waters, while somewhere beyond the dark horizon, a new morning was already beginning its slow journey toward Moonhaven.
The eastern horizon remained wrapped in deep shades of midnight blue, but something had begun to change. It was almost impossible to notice at first. The stars still covered the sky. The lighthouse beam continued its steady circle across the calm sea. The village below remained peacefully asleep, yet the darkness somehow felt softer, less complete, as though morning had quietly begun its journey from somewhere far beyond the horizon. Elias stood beside the lantern with one hand resting lightly against the polished brass railing. This is the quietest hour. Before sunrise? He nodded. The world hasn't woken yet, but it has stopped sleeping. You listened carefully. He was right. The sounds of the night had changed. The owls had become silent. The breeze had gentled. Even the waves seemed calmer, rolling against the cliffs with slow, peaceful breaths. Far below, the harbor rested perfectly still. Fishing boats floated like tiny shadows upon glass. Their ropes barely moved. Their reflections remained almost perfectly clear beneath the fading moonlight. The lighthouse continued turning. Its warm golden light swept slowly across the sleeping coastline, again and again, without pause, without complaint, simply keeping its promise until daylight arrived. Elias opened one of the tall windows. Cool ocean air drifted into the lantern room. It carried the familiar scent of salt, cedar, damp stone, and distant wildflowers growing around the cliffs. The air felt wonderfully fresh. You took a deep breath. "I don't think I've ever smelled a morning before." Elias smiled. "Most people wake after it has already begun." The two of you stepped onto the narrow gallery surrounding the lantern room. The sea stretched endlessly beneath you. Above, thousands of stars still shimmered brilliantly. The Milky Way crossed the heavens like a quiet silver river. One bright planet glowed low above the eastern sea. Its reflection shimmered gently across the water. "It always waits there before sunrise," Elias pointed toward the bright light. "My grandfather called it the morning lantern, because it arrives before the sun and reminds us that light rarely comes all at once." The words drifted gently into the cool air. Somewhere below, a single seabird called from the cliffs. Another answered farther along the shoreline. The first voices of the morning had begun. The eastern sky slowly brightened. Deep blue softened into gentle indigo. Then came pale violet. Then a delicate ribbon of silver stretched quietly along the horizon. The change happened so slowly that it felt almost impossible to measure. Every minute carried another tiny gift of color. Far out at sea, the outline of distant islands slowly emerged from the darkness. Clouds that had been invisible only moments before now floated peacefully above the horizon. Their edges glowed faintly with soft pink light. The world was returning, little by little, without hurry, without noise. Elias disappeared briefly into the small room beneath the lantern. A moment later, he returned carrying 2 thick wool blankets. "The breeze gets cooler before sunrise." He wrapped one gently around your shoulders. The warmth felt comforting against the fresh morning air. Together, you watched the sea. Neither of you spoke. Silence felt like the proper language for this moment. Below the cliffs, a family of seals slowly climbed onto their favorite rocks. They stretched lazily beneath the fading moonlight before settling comfortably together. Farther away, several dolphins surfaced briefly before disappearing once more beneath the calm water. The lighthouse beam passed gently over them, then continued toward the horizon. Nothing disturbed the peaceful rhythm. A few minutes later, the village slowly began to awaken. One cottage window glowed softly, then another. A chimney released its first ribbon of smoke. Somewhere below, the bakery oven came alive. Even from the lighthouse, the comforting scent of fresh bread drifted upward with the cool morning breeze. You smiled. "I knew it." Elias laughed quietly. "They begin before anyone else." Soon, another familiar sound floated across the quiet air. The gentle turning of Arthur's old water wheel. Steady, patient, almost like another heartbeat joining the morning. Birdsong slowly spread across the meadows. Robins, finches, blackbirds. Their cheerful melodies blended together without ever competing. The forest beyond the village seemed to wake all at once. Leaves whispered softly. Branches stirred. The first squirrels appeared among the ancient pines. The eastern horizon glowed brighter. Soft pink melted into warm peach. Golden light slowly gathered beneath the clouds. The stars began disappearing one by one.
Not suddenly, simply fading, as though they had quietly finished their work for the night. Only the brightest remained. Then they too disappeared. The moon had grown pale. Its silver reflection slowly dissolved into the brightening sea. The lighthouse lantern still turned faithfully, but its golden beam now seemed gentler beneath the growing daylight. It won't be long. Elias watched the horizon with peaceful eyes. The lighthouse always knows. A distant fishing boat left the harbor. Its small engine hummed softly across the water. The captain raised one hand toward the lighthouse as he passed beneath the cliffs. Elias answered with a gentle wave. He leaves every morning, every sunrise, and every evening he comes home. The answer carried the quiet certainty that seemed to exist everywhere in Moonhaven. The sky brightened once more. Clouds became brilliant shades of gold and rose. Their reflections transformed the sea into a living painting. You found yourself smiling without realizing it. The first edge of the sun slowly appeared above the horizon. Its warm golden light spilled gently across the ocean. The water shimmered brilliantly. The cliffs glowed. The village rooftops caught the first sunlight. Wildflowers surrounding the lighthouse sparkled with morning dew. At that very moment, Elias reached quietly toward the lantern controls. With one smooth motion, he gently dimmed the great light. Its beam faded gracefully, not because its work had ended forever, only because another light had arrived to continue the journey. The sun climbed higher. Warmth slowly replaced the cool night air. The village below fully awakened. Children stepped outside carrying little baskets. Fishermen prepared their boats. The bakery door opened. Fresh bread filled the streets. The lighthouse stood peacefully above it all, resting after another faithful night. Elias smiled toward the bright new day. The sea has another story ready. You looked across the endless coastline glowing beneath the fresh morning sun. Somehow, it already felt like home.
The morning unfolded gently across Moonhaven, filling every corner of the village with warm golden light. From the high windows of the lighthouse, you watched the first rays of sunshine spread slowly over the sea, until the water shimmered like thousands of tiny pieces of polished glass. The lantern had completed its work for the night. Its great crystal lens stood quietly in the sunlight, reflecting delicate rainbows across the wooden floor of the lantern room. Elias rested one hand on the polished brass frame. Every sunrise feels like a quiet thank you. You looked toward him. From who? He smiled. The sea. The answer somehow felt perfectly natural. Together you made your way down the familiar spiral staircase. The stone steps no longer felt unfamiliar beneath your feet. Every turn of the staircase seemed to greet you like an old friend. The cottage below was already filled with comforting warmth. Fresh coffee rested on the table. A loaf of warm bread, delivered only minutes earlier by the bakery, filled the little kitchen with its wonderful aroma. Beside it sat fresh butter, blackberry jam, slices of local cheese, and a small basket overflowing with ripe strawberries. I wasn't expecting breakfast to appear by itself. Elias laughed softly. It never does. A gentle knock sounded at the cottage door. 3 cheerful taps. When Elias opened it, a young girl stood outside holding another little basket. She couldn't have been older than 10. Golden curls peeked from beneath a straw hat decorated with tiny blue flowers. "Good morning, Mr. Elias." "Good morning, Lily." I brought the honey. She proudly lifted the small glass jar wrapped in cloth. "My grandfather collected it yesterday." Elias accepted it with a grateful smile. "Please thank him for me." "I will." She looked toward you. "So you're the traveler everyone keeps talking about." You laughed. "I suppose I am." She nodded very seriously. "I hope you're staying long enough to see the whale." "The whale?" Elias smiled.
Lily believes every visitor should meet old Rowan. Lily folded her arms. He always comes. Eventually. Then, just as quickly as she had arrived, she skipped happily down the garden path toward the village. You looked curiously at Elias. Old Rowan? A very old humpback whale. He visits Moonhaven every autumn. Nobody knows exactly why, but he's become part of the village. Breakfast passed peacefully. Warm bread, fresh honey, sweet strawberries, soft morning light pouring through the cottage windows. Outside, birds sang happily among the garden flowers, while bees drifted lazily from blossom to blossom. After washing the dishes together, Elias reached for his walking stick. I think today is a good day for the western cliffs. Something special? He smiled. I'll let the cliffs answer. The two of you followed a narrow trail that curved around the opposite side of the lighthouse. Unlike the eastern paths you had already explored, this coastline felt wonderfully untouched. Tall grasses waved gently in the breeze. Wild thyme grew between the rocks, releasing its pleasant fragrance whenever your footsteps brushed against it. The cliffs here rose higher above the sea. Far below, clear turquoise water curled gently into hidden caves carved by centuries of patient waves. Every few minutes, seabirds soared effortlessly beside the cliffs, allowing the rising air to carry them without moving their wings. They make flying look easy, Elias nodded. They trust the wind. The path eventually reached a broad overlook unlike any place you had visited before. A circle of old wooden chairs faced the endless ocean. Each chair looked slightly different. Some were painted blue, others white. One carried tiny carvings of seashells along its arms. Another displayed little stars across its backrest. They don't match, you smiled. They weren't supposed to. Elias sat comfortably in one of the chairs. Every time someone retired from the lighthouse, they built a chair. They left it here, so the next keeper would always have company. You slowly walked around the circle. Each chair carried a tiny brass plaque under the seat. No dates, only names. Samuel, Grace, Benjamin, Rose, Thomas, Anna, Michael. Dozens of lighthouse keepers had quietly left a piece of themselves here. You chose an empty chair beside Elias. The sea stretched endlessly before you. Far beyond the horizon, white clouds floated peacefully beneath the blue sky. A gentle breeze carried the familiar scent of salt and wildflowers across the cliffs. For a long while, neither of you spoke. The chairs themselves almost seemed to encourage silence. Eventually, Elias reached into his coat pocket. He removed a tiny wooden whistle carved in the shape of a seabird. It looked beautifully worn with age. This guy gave this to me. What does it do? He smiled. Nothing remarkable. He lifted it gently to his lips. A soft bird call floated into the morning air. Only one quiet note. Within moments, several curious gulls circled overhead before settling on nearby rocks. One particularly old gull landed only a few feet away. Its feathers carried shades of silver and white. It watched Elias calmly, tilting his head slightly. You know him? We've greeted each other for years. The gull remained for several peaceful moments before lifting gracefully into the breeze once more. I suppose friendship doesn't always need words. Elias nodded. Some friendships simply need time. The breeze strengthened gently. Far below, the sea sparkled beneath the bright blue sky. A group of dolphins surfaced beyond the cliffs, moving together in perfect harmony before disappearing once again into the deep blue water. You leaned back comfortably in the old wooden chair. Everything felt wonderfully still. Not because nothing was happening, but because everything was happening exactly as it should. After a while, Elias stood. I'd like to show you one final tradition before we return. He led you farther along the cliff path until you reached a weathered wooden post standing alone near the edge. Suspended from the post was a simple brass wind chime. Its tubes were made from old pieces of lighthouse metal, polished smooth by countless years of sea air. Whenever the breeze passed through, the chime produced deep, gentle notes unlike any instrument you had ever heard. Not loud, not musical in the ordinary sense, simply peaceful. "What is it for?" Elias rested his hand lightly against the post. "Whenever someone leaves Moonhaven, they ring the wind chime once, so the sea remembers they were here." The breeze drifted through again. The brass tubes sang softly. Their quiet melody floated across the cliffs before disappearing over the endless ocean. Neither of you moved, neither of you spoke. The sea carried the sound away, just as it had carried thousands of peaceful mornings before. And somewhere beyond the bright blue horizon, another gentle adventure waited patiently, ready to become part of Moonhaven's endless story.
The gentle song of the brass wind chime slowly faded into the endless blue horizon. For a few peaceful moments, neither you nor Elias spoke. The breeze continued moving softly across the western cliffs, carrying the scent of salt water, blooming lavender, and warm sunshine. Below, the calm sea rolled patiently against the rocks, just as it had for centuries. "It never really ends, does it?" you asked quietly. Elias looked toward the horizon where the ocean seemed to meet the sky. "No." He smiled gently. "It simply continues." The words stayed with you as the two of you began walking back toward the lighthouse. The narrow trail wound through fields filled with golden wildflowers that danced lazily beneath the afternoon breeze. Butterflies floated from blossom to blossom. Honeybees hummed peacefully among the lavender. Somewhere in the distance, sheep bells rang softly as a small flock grazed beneath the rolling hills. Everything seemed wonderfully familiar now. Only a few days earlier, every path had felt new. Now each corner of Moonhaven greeted you like an old friend. The old oak tree overlooking the sea, Margaret's beautiful garden, Arthur's quiet mill, Thomas's little workshop, the hidden forest, the morning circle, the tiny island chapel. Every place carried its own peaceful memory. As the lighthouse slowly came into view once again, Elias noticed your quiet smile. "I think Moonhaven has done its work." "What work?" "It helped you slow down." You looked around. The white lighthouse stood proudly against the bright afternoon sky. The village rested peacefully below. Fishing boats drifted gently inside the harbor. Children laughed somewhere near the bakery. Birds circled effortlessly above the cliffs. Perhaps he was right. For the first time in a very long while, you weren't thinking about tomorrow. You were simply enjoying today. Back at the lighthouse cottage, Elias placed the little memory box upon the wooden table. He opened it carefully. Inside rested only a handful of simple treasures: the small gull feather, a smooth white pebble, a dried lavender flower, a tiny seashell, a folded note. Nothing expensive, nothing rare, yet somehow it felt priceless. "You've shown me yours," you smiled. "What should I place inside?" Elias looked toward the open window where the sea breeze gently moved the curtains. "What do you think you'll remember first?" You thought quietly. Not the lighthouse itself, not the cliffs, not even the beautiful sunsets. Instead, you remembered the feeling, the peaceful mornings, the slow conversations, the warm bread, the sound of waves during the night, the kindness of complete strangers. You reached into your pocket. Earlier that morning, while walking near the morning circle, you had picked up a tiny, smooth pebble without even realizing it. It rested comfortably in your hand. You placed it carefully inside the memory box. Elias smiled. "A good choice.
It reminds me that home isn't always a place. Sometimes, it's simply how somewhere makes you feel. Outside, the afternoon slowly drifted toward evening once again. The familiar golden light returned to the cliffs. Long shadows stretched across the lighthouse garden. The roses gently swayed beneath the cooling breeze. From the village below came the comforting sound of the bakery bell. One slow note, another peaceful day moving gently towards sunset. A soft knock sounded at the cottage door. When Elias opened it, nearly half the village stood outside. Margaret carried a basket of fresh flowers. Arthur held a warm loaf of bread wrapped in linen. Thomas brought a beautifully carved wooden lantern no taller than his hand. Noah carried fresh apples from a nearby orchard. Lily proudly held a tiny bouquet of wild daisies. "We thought we'd have supper together," Margaret said warmly. "You've become part of Moonhaven." The words filled the little cottage with quiet happiness. Soon the long wooden table overflowed with simple homemade dishes. Fresh vegetable soup, warm bread, local cheese, roasted potatoes, apple pie, herbal tea. Laughter drifted gently through the open windows while the evening breeze carried the scent of the sea inside. Stories were shared, old memories were remembered. Children smiled quietly, neighbors laughed softly. No one looked at a clock. No one hurried home. Outside, the sun slowly lowered toward the horizon for what felt like a final magnificent sunset. After supper, everyone walked together toward the cliffs. The entire village gathered beside the lighthouse. No ceremony, no speeches, only friends watching another beautiful evening arrive. The sky slowly transformed into brilliant shades of gold, orange, rose, lavender, and deep blue. The sea reflected every color perfectly. For a long while, the only sound was the gentle rhythm of the waves below. As the first evening star appeared overhead, Elias quietly climbed the spiral staircase one last time. Everyone watched as the familiar golden beam of the lighthouse slowly awakened once again. Its warm light swept across the calm sea, steady, faithful, welcoming, just as it always had, just as it always would. You looked around at the peaceful faces gathered beside you. Margaret smiled quietly. Arthur rested comfortably upon his walking stick. Thomas admired the beautifully carved wooden lantern. Lily proudly held a tiny bouquet of wild daisies. The lighthouse shone above them all. At that moment, you realized something wonderfully simple. Moonhaven was never special because of its lighthouse, or its cliffs, or its hidden paths. It was special because every person here chose to make ordinary days feel extraordinary through patience, kindness, gratitude, and quiet care for one another. The sea continued breathing beneath the cliffs. The stars slowly filled the evening sky. The lighthouse carried its warm golden light across the ocean. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another traveler might already be seeing that gentle beacon for the first time, wondering what peaceful place waited beyond the darkness. Perhaps one day they too would follow the light. Perhaps they would walk the same quiet paths, listen to the same waves, breathe the same sea air, and discover the same simple truth. Sometimes, the greatest journeys are not the ones that take us the farthest from home. Sometimes, they are the ones that quietly teach us where home has been waiting all along. And so the lighthouse continued shining through another peaceful night, while Moonhaven rested beside the endless sea, just as it always had, calm, welcoming, and timeless, patiently waiting for every traveler who needed a little light, a little kindness, and a quiet place to dream.